Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting. I'm Mike O'Reilly, the chairman. It is October the 2nd. It is 7 p.m. So please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll start by calling the roll. With on my right,
Dominic Smerglino, alternate commissioner.
Ryan Condon, Commissioner.
Dan Ambrosi, Commissioner.
Bruno Maini, commissioner.
Robert Westland, Commissioner.
Nicole Lupo, alternate commissioner.
Catherine Gallagher, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
all right, anyone online for us? No?
I'll think for us.
Okay. And we'll go to general public participation. If anybody here would like to address the commission on any issues that are not on the agenda or likely to be on a future agenda, this would be the time to do that. Is anyone here who would like to address the commission on items that are not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Or if online, please press raise my hand button. Okay. General public participation, anyone interested? Okay, then we'll go ahead with public hearings.
I'd like to make a motion to move SCP 2025-05 file 1669 and SUB 2025-04 file number 1281, 1536, and 1634 Monroe Turnpike to the end of our section, please.
Second. Pull the roll, starting on my right.
Condon, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Maini, yes.
Westland, yes.
Right, the agenda is so modified. We're expecting that to be a longer hearing, so we'd like to get the shorter ones out of the way first. First, SCP 2025-04, this is file 1668, 169 Enterprise Drive. This is a public hearing continued from September the 18th, 2025. Kathleen, do you have any new exhibits?
Yes.
Does everybody have to vote on an agenda change or just the seated members?
Just the seated members. Since our last meeting, we have the letter of extension provided by the applicant in order to extend the public hearing until today's meeting. That was Exhibit 20, Exhibit 21, revised lighting plans, revision date 9/22/25, Exhibit 22, the revised planning zoning administrator report by myself, revised 10/2/2025, sorry. Exhibit number 23, engineering comment letter by town engineer James DeMeo that was issued today, 10/2/2025.
Okay, thank you. And for the applicant?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Terry Thibodeau, 169 Right Drive. We're following up from our previous meetings. We closed out all the different items that we've been working with Kathy and James on. We had a few items off the punch list from our last meeting. Since then, we have taken action to correct all of the open items. There is revised plans there. Not sure if anybody had a chance to take a look at them. I know we were a little delayed in trying to submission. We just wanted to ensure that all corrections were in on the plans. I could give you guys a brief rundown if you would like, and Kathleen could back in everything that we discussed. We did update our parking calculations, which a correction will have to be made, assuming that this application is approved. The deferred parking, Kathleen requested that, well, not her request, there was the town code that only 25% of the spots, if that's right, Kathleen, could be deferred. So we have 24 spots only 14 would be able to be deferred based on the potential building uses. So she had asked that we did strike out 10 of the spaces, which we have no problem with doing, and that could be revised for the final plans for submission. Another update that was made to the plan was the blasting plan. On the fourth sheet of the drawings, you'll see a rough trapezoidal shape. Denoted in a brown line, which outlines the area that blasting may need to occur. This would be line blasting, just to get us to the right elevations. She said that this would be something you guys would discuss as commission, determine if there's any conditions or stipulations involving that. We adjusted the outside storage calculations to, I'm gonna say, satisfy what we're able to do with the town and what we perceive being done on the site. And we made a few other updates to the lighting plan and the site plan to correspond with the lighting plan. There is one other correction that will have to be made to the lighting plan, where we're getting a response from the consultant for the lighting. It's in regards to the height of the lights on the building. They have it noted as 24-foot mounting height, but James, the town engineer, commented, he says it's most likely a charting error, which I believe so as well. I'm waiting for a response from the consultant. But he said if it is lowered to 22 or 20-foot height, which seems more reasonable for the height of the sidewalls of the building, we understand negative implications to the height being lowered to that height. Anybody has any questions? I'd be feel free to.
All right, we'll go to the commission first for any questions. We'll start on my right.
I believe we discussed, you said you were going to have some large triaxle trucks coming into the property,
Correct.
and you said you would agree that they would stick to Route 25.
Yeah, exiting the industrial park, or I believe if that's Enterprise Drive or whatever road that name is, would take a right to return back to 25 on the Pepper Street. They would take a left, go the long way around.
Right, or cut through any of the other roads.
Correct, yeah, take a right and go directly back out.
Can we put that as a condition of approval?
And what are you looking for, signage? I know you want it as a condition of the approval, but I know we've also put that as a condition of approval in the past, and it's been hard to remind people of that. Do you want additional signage at the entrance exit?
I don't know about
Sign
signage.
existing at the end of the industrial park. I know that you guys have had issues with town with people complying with that.
Right. Yeah,
Our volume of truck traffic is also going to be very small. I mean,
yeah,
there are operations where there is 10, 20, 30, 40 trucks per day.
right. I just want to keep it fair.
Yeah.
Everybody in that area.
It's easier for us to police it, being it's only a few loads per day. It's not like you have a constant influx of in and out.
Would you put a sign at your entrance that says all exiting trucks must take right onto Pepper, something like that?
I mean, I'm sure somewhere on the property, maybe not right at the front,
Yeah.
but like a street front at the exit, but somewhere we put, all large trucks returning to 25 must exit industrial park that right?
Yeah.
Or, some wording of that fashion.
Because you guys are all the way at the end of Enterprise Drive, so.
Yeah, so it'd be hard to put right at the end because it's a mile.
Yeah, until you get there, so you can't say turn
We
right.
can't put a sign on somebody else's property.
Right.
Exit.
It's a good idea. Just don't know how.
I understand your concern. I mean,
Yeah.
you only work with you guys, whatever fashion you believe is
You
acceptable.
can put it in, or we can do, if you don't want signage, I mean, we don't have to do signage. I was just offering that as an option.
Yeah, I mean, one sign would be good.
Yeah.
That's all for me.
I'm good.
Commissioner Thompson, you good?
Yeah, I'm good too.
Commissioner Monroe?
Couple things. The blasting, I think there needs to be an hours to that, hours of operation for the blasting. Huh?
I don't know if the fire marshal has.
Typical hours of operation, I believe, are, hold on, I can tell you exactly.
But for blasting is different than
Yeah.
regular hours of operation.
Per our zoning code, blasting operations are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. This commission has restricted it on other projects that were adjacent to residential areas to be from 10 to 3. These guys aren't really near a lot of other residential areas, but if you wanted to limit it to anything shorter than 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, this would be the time to do that.
I'm okay with the 9 to 5, especially where you're located, and it doesn't seem like there's much blasting that needs to be done. So,
More small line blasting just to lower the ledge a few feet down to the.
Correct.
elevation we need.
had something else and now I forgot.
We can go back to you.
Sure, I forgot.
Commissioner Weston.
No questions.
No questions.
And then there we go.
Okay, got it.
And there we go.
Okay. Kathleen.
As was mentioned, the couple outstanding items we have is that we had talked extensively at the last meeting about the uses. They have committed to having their proposed uses as office space, manufacturing space, and contractors trade establishment. So that is what would be approved as part of the special exception permit. Anything past that that requires a special exception permit in the zoning code for use, such as the research and development and things of that nature, would require that applicant to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a special exception permit. And as part of that, parking calculations would have to be conducted. The idea is by them approving these, by the commission approving these 3 uses, we can just do change of tenant permits for them for the specific different tenants in the building. If for some reason the maximum occupancy is that everybody's a contractor's trade establishment, that's the highest intensity of parking calculations, they would have to utilize the deferred parking. They are proposing 24 deferred parking spaces. As I had mentioned, that doesn't meet the zoning calculations. You can only defer up to 25%, which is 14 parking spaces. So they have agreed to stripe 10 of them. And then the other 14 would be the deferred spaces if they need it. We do believe, they're going to kind of use the tenants and utilize the space. They have plenty of space for outdoor storage and things of that nature that they can utilize it based on whatever that final configuration of the spaces would end up being. And that's an option to put as a condition of the approval. We had some questions about EV charging stations. They've answered all of that. They've shown the blasting area, which is basically along the buildings in those areas. I don't believe, because of their location pretty far away from other residential zones, that we don't need to do any other noticing requirement beyond what's required as part of the fire marshal permit. And then, yes, the lighting plan shows some of the wall-mounted lights at 24 feet, but the height of the building is 24 feet. So the question was just, is that really what you want to do? So if we are fine with putting a condition of the approval that they have to submit an updated lighting plan confirming that final location, just to they still meet all of the lighting requirements. But that's pretty minor. They have given us 2 extensions so far to this point. And so at the moment, both the town engineer and myself have no issues if the commission would like to close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to the public now, as this is a public hearing. If any members of the public would like to comment on the application, this is 169 Enterprise Drive. Please raise your hands. Anyone online would like to comment on this application, 169 Enterprise Drive, please raise your hands. Seeing none, then we'll go back to the applicant. Would you like to close the hearing?
Appreciate everybody's time here over the last few months. I hope you're able to answer these questions. We look forward to being able to move this to the town of Monroe and years with the town. Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll close this hearing and move on to the next public hearing, which is
So creative with this.
SCP 2019-10-A1. This is 17 Enterprise Drive. We'll be hearing this in conjunction with SCP 2025-07-1671, which is also 17 Enterprise Drive.
We're going to hear them a little bit separately. One
A little bit separately.
is dependent upon the other one, but I still think we keep them as separate public hearings.
Right, then we'll start with the first one.
And hold on one moment. I do believe the applicant's representative is online. Mary, I'm promoting you to panelist, which means you have to accept it on your end.
Commissioner Condon, you have the notice.
I do. Are we doing A1 first?
Yes.
All right. In accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 2nd, 7 p.m. Soon thereafter via hybrid Zoom meeting and in-person attendees located at Monroe Town Hall. SCP 2019-10A1, file 1618 17 Enterprise Drive, permit of amendment modification application to apply for shared parking in additional parking spaces located at 17 Enterprise Drive, Assessors Map 104, Lot 2-5. JNS Industries LLC, owner, solely engineer, LLC agent. Notice was published in the Connecticut Post twice, once on September 18th and again on September 25th.
Thank you, Commissioner Condon. Kathleen, exhibits.
Exhibit 1 is the application and plan set. Exhibit 2 is the planning and zoning administrator report by myself dated 9/23/25. Exhibit 3 is EMS comments, which had stated that they had no comments. Exhibit number 4 is the Conservation Water Resource Commission comments. Exhibit number 5 is the certificate of mailings. Exhibit number 6 is additional off-street parking drawings by Solely Engineering dated 9/24/25. Exhibit number 7 is revised plans by Solely Engineering dated 9/30/25.
Okay, thank you. So do we have the applicant online? Oh, we have Mary.
Good evening. Yes, so hi, for the record, my name is Mary Blackburn. I am a professional landscape architect in the state of Connecticut with Solely Engineering offices here in Monroe at 501 Main Street. In attendance tonight as well, I believe, is Jim Del Medico, the owner of 17 Enterprise Drive. So as Kathleen mentioned, this is an application for shared parking. It is in association with the following agenda item, which is a change of use application from warehouse to indoor recreation. And actually, could I share my screen?
Yes, I made you a co-host, so you should
Okay.
be able to share.
Okay. Can you all see that?
No.
No.
See.
Let's see. Oh, it says one participant can share. Oh, here we go. There we go. That should be working now. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is Cambridge Drive and then Enterprise Drive here, and this is the site as it exists, 17 Enterprise Drive with 2 existing buildings. We'll be calling this the front building, and this will be the rear building. They are both existing warehouse and office uses. This is all warehouse with an office mezzanine, both warehouse with associated office, and then an arborist use with a mezzanine office. So here is the as-built and our proposed parking. This is again Cambridge Drive, Enterprise Drive, the front building and the rear building. So existing warehouse uses, the blue is the proposed indoor recreation for the Ninja Warrior gym. The yellow is an office associated with the existing warehouse, the user's triple point. And the red is the arborist use with a mezzanine office in the front corner here. And then the rear building again is all warehouse with office mezzanines in the front. And then all the existing associated parking and 2 loading docks. So the shared use that we're proposing that is allowed or that the commission is permitted to allow per the regulations is for a reduction of 30% to the predominant use. The predominant use on the site is the warehouse. So we are proposing shared parking between the warehouse and the proposed indoor recreation. The 30% would allow for 12 spaces to be shared between the two uses. Oh, this is just additional floor plans that we submitted. So Enterprise Drive is along this side. This is the front building. There are no proposed changes in the use to the rear building. So again, the 9,060 square feet that you'll hear in the following application is for the change of use to the indoor recreation, Triple Point, and their office, and the arborist with the mezzanine office. And here we have our parking table. Again, we are proposing 109 spaces, 121 would be required. The reduction is for 12 spaces to both the predominant warehouse space shown in green for a total of 109. In order to reach 109, we are proposing striping of 13 additional spaces in an already paved area of the site that is not currently used for parking. There are 2 parallel spaces that would be eliminated, and then 4 perpendicular spaces would be added here, and 9 perpendicular spaces would be added here. But again, this is already existing paved area. They would just be striped. So operationally, the warehouse and the indoor recreation have different operating hours. So Triple Point, the existing tenant in this green and yellow area here, they have 14 employees. They operate predominantly from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. Occasionally, they'll have 2 or 3 employees that stay on after 5 p.m. to maybe 9 or 10 p.m. The proposed shared parking for the proposed indoor recreation operates from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., 9 or 10 p.m., and then on weekends for birthdays occasionally. And they have classes with a max of 20 people and 3 employees, which both of those operationally are actually less than the required parking per the zoning regs. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, I should also mention that Triple Point, again, the operator of the warehouse here, typically gets 1 truck per day, and that's typically in the morning or early afternoon hours.
Okay, thank you, Mary. We'll go to the commissioners for questions. We'll start on my right.
No questions. It sounds like it works out pretty well.
Commissioner Condon.
No questions.
No questions.
Questions?
No questions.
All right, then we'll go to the public. Does anyone in the public have any comments on this application for 17 Enterprise Drive to share 12 spaces? Anybody comments online? Hearing none, we'll go back to you, Mary. We have no questions. Do you want to close the hearing?
All of staff's comments have been addressed, so if the applicant would like to close the public hearing, staff has no issue with that.
Yes, thank you. We would request to close the public.
Closing this hearing. And we're moving on. Don't go anywhere. SCP 2025-07, 1671, 17 Enterprise Drive. We have the notice.
Mary, I don't see Joe on. Oh, beautiful. Oh, I thought you were going to be on that. Come on down. Come on down.
Hello, everyone. For the record, I'm Joe Morofsky. I've been a resident here since, I believe, 2017.
Hold on, should I read the?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
All right.
Go ahead.
One
If
second.
I'm doing something wrong, let me know.
No, it doesn't. In accordance with CGS 8-70, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 2nd, 7 p.m. or soon thereafter via hybrid Zoom meeting and in-person attendees located at Monroe Town Hall. SCP 2025-07, file 7-1, 17 Enterprise Drive, application for a special exception permit to include indoor recreation, Monroe Ninja Academy at 17 Enterprise Drive, Assessor's Map 104, Lot 002. Joseph Moravsky, owner. Notice was published in in Connecticut Post twice, September 18th and 25th.
Thank you, Commissioner Condon. Kathleen, do we have exhibits?
Exhibit 1 is the application and plan set by the applicant. Exhibit 2 is the certificate of mailings from the applicant. Exhibit 3 is a letter from EMS stating they had no comments with the exception of they wanted to make sure there was an AED in the facility, which the applicant has said that there would be. Exhibit number 4 is the Health Department comments dated 9/23/25. Exhibit number 5 is the Planning and Zoning Administrator report dated 9/24/25. Exhibit 6 is additional EMS comments about our conversation of what I had just mentioned. Exhibit number 7 is the engineering comments by the Town of Monroe engineer dated 9/24/25. Exhibit 8 is the Conservation and Water Resource Commission comments dated 9/24/25.
Thank you, Kathleen. Mr. Moravsky.
Thank you. So for the record, I am Joe Moravsky. I've been a resident of Monroe for the last 8 years now. My wife is back. We have 3 kids. We didn't bring them. We're sparing you of that one. And I am a coach at Stanford Ninja Academy and a manager of the gym. I've been there since 2019. And I'm also on the TV show on NBC, American Ninja Warrior. Kathleen and I thought I'd still be in Vegas filming the show, but I was able to sneak away and get to this hearing today. And we're looking to essentially have my company, Monroe, Moravsky Incorporated, doing business as Monroe Ninja Academy, which will be a franchise for me and my partner, Thomas Alberti. It'll be one of the franchise gyms for our new franchise we've developed. And looking to bring it to Monroe, keep it local, keep it in town. Stanford's a little bit of a ride, but our gym is thriving and it's beautiful and kids love it. And Ninja, if you're not familiar with the sport, is what I would consider a rapidly growing sport, a foundational sport for kids, kind of like gymnastics, soccer, basketball. It's a full body experience where you're working not just your upper body and your lower body and your core, but your mind as well, overcoming fears, failure, just like you might have seen on American Ninja Warrior. Some years you have really good years, some years you have really bad years. That's just how it goes. But so a lot of life lessons that are learned at the gym, and it's just great for the kids, and that's what we're trying to do, is bring this gym to Monroe, looking for the special exception permit to, I guess, be passed and have a recreational indoor gym.
Okay, thank you. We'll see if the commissioners have questions. We can start with Commissioner on my left.
Oh, boy. No questions. I read through everything and no questions.
I think it's a great addition to the community. It'll fit in very well with Monroe. Now, as far as events, are there like events, or is this just going to be like a training facility?
There can be standalone events. In Stanford, our gym has what we call the World Ninja League, and we participate in that league. And they're one-off events every couple of months. We'll have anywhere from 6-year-olds to elite athletes come and compete at certain times over the weekend. So mainly it's a weekend event. If it's not a weekend event, it'd be something over a break, like let's say a few days before Thanksgiving or the winter break. But these are all additional, not required for the gym at all. It's just something we do in Stanford.
So given the square footage of this facility, how many people would you anticipate would be attending one of these events?
Each wave is probably between 30 and 40 kids.
Okay.
Or adults, depending on the age group.
So parking.
Parking would be fine, and this is over the weekend as well. I would say 95% of the time.
Yep.
And a lot of people do come with friends or fellow competitors, because a lot of people are coming from out of town for the most part, because this is the first Ninja ever in, I think the closest one that's a standalone is either Danbury or Norwalk.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
No questions.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, no questions.
Sounds great.
It's for all ages, by the way, so. For all ages. by the way.
All right. So let's see if the,
Sign you guys up.
Make sure you sign the waiver first.
if the public
We're gonna have an
has
AED,
any
right?
comments on this?
So one comment is just that indoor recreation has a much higher parking intensity use than warehousing, which is what the original special exception permit was granted for, which is why you have the shared parking request that was just presented prior to this application by the owner in order to allow that shared parking. So this is dependent upon the approval of the first 17 enterprise application.
Right. Any members of the public like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand. Anyone online would like to comment on this application? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, then
Awesome.
back to the applicant. Would you like to close the hearing and move on?
Thank you for taking the time to hear me, and thank you.
Thank you. We'll close this hearing then. And we'll move on. ZCA 2025-02, file 1032, 909 Main Street.
In accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 2nd at 7 PM or soon thereafter via hybrid Zoom meeting and in-person attendees at Monroe Town Hall. ZCA 2025-02, file 1032, 909 Main Street, zone boundary change petition application from Industrial 1 to Business 2, located at 909 Main Street, Assessors Map 103, Lot 014-000. Michael Porco, owner, Porco Construction, applicant. Notice was published in Connecticut Post on September 18th and September 25th.
Thank you. Kathleen, exhibits.
Exhibit number 1 is the application and plan set by the applicant. Exhibit number 2 is the certified mail list. Exhibit number 3 is the MetroCog response. Exhibit number 4 is the health department comments stating that it's the health department comments. Exhibit number 5 is the planning and zoning administrator report. Exhibit number 6 is the EMS comments stating that they had no comments. Exhibit number 7 is the Conservation and Water Resource Commission comments. Exhibit number 8 is the WestCog response comments. And that is it.
Okay, for the applicant.
Good evening. I'm requesting a zone change from I-1 to B2.
I'll just need your name and address for the record. Great.
And the reason for the request is it's a 3-acre parcel. And the characteristics of the neighborhood is mixed from residential to industrial to business, which is across the street. So keep having it as an industrial site is very obtrusive to the town because it's the gateway leading into and exiting Monroe. And having another industrial site like a wood chip processing plant, excuse me, or a truck, or all the different types of businesses that the I-1 allows is really, one, it's not conducive for that particular location on Main Street when Monroe has adopted industrial properties over on Pepper Street. So it leaves it as an isolated piece of property that almost becomes undevelopable. And I have prepared a narrative on zone change and the different types of characteristics that would enhance the neighborhood from industrial trucks and processing to more of a business-like, clean business environment without trucks leaving and entering the property. And I think it's really conducive to the Main Street Design District that is on 5.41, which is top from Midtown to Toronto.
Have you had any interest in the property?
We've had some interest, but some of the interested potential buyers are, they're either too obstructive or site, noise, pollution, there was a little bit too much. And Kathleen has addressed some of them addressed some of the issues with the potential buyers, but they just moved on to something else.
All right, then let's start with some commissioner questions on my right.
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
I think it's good for the clients, good for the town. No questions.
That makes sense to me. No questions.
Kathleen, do you have anything to?
The applicant has addressed all of staff's comments. The only issue is there is a wetland on site. So the Inland Wetland Commission unfortunately didn't meet their second meeting of this past month. So we do need to keep the public hearing open for one more meeting so that they can write the commission a referral letter to be part of the record.
Okay. We can go to the public then. Any members of the public would like to comment on this 909 Main Street zone change, please raise your hand. Any members of the public would like to comment on this application on 909 Main Street online, please press your raise my hand button. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any comments on this. So what we will do is put this on hold until wetlands can chime in on it. Imagine it'll be before then, the next meeting.
So it'll be continued to the October 16th meeting.
So we'll see you back to October 16th. All right, that closes that hearing. Now, postponed it, not closed.
Yeah, no.
I'm going to go grab the applicant for 1536,
All right,
1560.
well, we can start talking about them. This is SCP 2025, file number 1669. This is 1536 and 1564 Monroe Turnpike.
You want to go first on that?
You want to go first?
He's gonna say something.
No. Yeah, before I read it, you want to?
Commissioner Ambrosi is going to recuse himself from this hearing because of his public position on cluster development, which could prejudice his vote. Correct?
Well, correct, yeah, because Attorney Russo had concerns and called the town, so I've decided that instead of, because I know this has already been denied once before, that I don't want anything to might saying on this application to influence the commission anyway.
Okay, thank you.
And
You want
then,
to go ahead with the,
well, and before that, then let the record show Dominic Smiglino will be seated in Leon's place.
Dominic, okay.
With that, in accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 2nd at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter via hybrid Zoom meeting. And in-person attendees located at Monroe Town Hall, Council Chambers, 7 Fan Hill Road. SCP 2025-05, file 1669, 1536, and 1564 Monroe Turnpike. Application for a special exception permit for an 8-lot cluster development subdivision located at 1536 and 1564 Monroe Turnpike. Assessors map 150, lot 167, 168. Jan's Land Development LLC, owner applicant, J. Edwards and Associate LLC representative. Notice was published in the Connecticut Post twice, once on September 18th and again on September 25th. Back to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Condon.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
And when you're ready, I can share.
Want to go with the exhibits?
Yes. So Exhibit 1 is the application and plan set. Exhibit 2 is the certified mail receipts. Exhibit 3 is the zoning enforcement officer comments from the town of Monroe Zone CEO Thomas Noonan. Exhibit 4 is, I'm going to say a neighbor letter, and there's a lot of neighbor letters, but I'm not going to go through each one, but everyone has been circulated to this commission, added into the exhibit, but dated 9/18/25. Exhibit 5 is a neighbor letter dated 9/18/25. Exhibit 6 is the comments from the Conservation and Water Resource Commission. The original document date was 3/19/25. They resubmitted it from the past application, and they didn't have any additional comments. Exhibit 7 is a neighbor letter dated 9/22/25. Exhibit 8 is a neighbor letter, 9/22/25. Exhibit 9 is a neighbor letter, 9/22/25. Exhibit 10 is a neighbor letter, 9/23/25. Exhibit 11 is a neighbor letter, 9/23/25. Exhibit 12 is the EMS comments dated 9/19/25. Exhibit 13 is a neighbor letter dated August 20th, 2025. Exhibit 14 is a neighbor letter dated 9/22/25. Exhibit 15 is a neighbor letter dated 9/2/25. Exhibit 16 is the sewage disposal feasibility report by Jason Edwards and Associates, 9/25/25. Exhibit 17 is a neighbor letter dated 9/26/25. Exhibit 18 is a neighbor letter dated 9/26/25. Exhibit 17 is resubmitted Inland Wetland Commission letters dated 9/29/25. Exhibit 20 is a neighbor letter dated 9/29/25. Exhibit 21 is the Health Department comments dated 9/29/25. Exhibit 22 is a neighbor letter dated 9/30/25. Exhibit 23 is a neighbor letter dated 9/30/25. Exhibit 24 is a neighbor letter dated 9/30/25. Exhibit 25 is a neighbor letter dated 9/30/25. Exhibit 26 is a neighbor letter dated October 1st, 25. Exhibit 27 is a neighbor letter dated October 1st, 25. Exhibit 28 is a neighbor letter dated October 1st, 25. Exhibit 29 is a neighbor letter dated October 2nd, 25. Exhibit 30 is a neighbor letter dated 10/2/25. Exhibit 31 is updated information by the applicant, including the conventional subdivision, some easement comments, some easement language dated 10/2/25. And just for the record, all the exhibits being entered into the record, this commission has seen some of them before as part of the past application, but because this is a new application, we have asked both the public and the applicant to make sure that everything gets resubmitted, which is why some of the dates on some of the letters and whatnot are previous, because they resubmitted some of their original comments to make sure that it was included in the record.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for the applicant, we have.
Yes, Chair, Commissioners, good to be before you. Chris Russo, Rizzi LLC, offices at 10 Saskatoon Road in Fairfield. Happy to be before you again on this application for 1536 and 1564 Monroe Turnpike. I appreciate you agreeing to hear this application. I know we're all familiar with what is being proposed. However, as Kathleen stated, since this is a new application and a new record, I'll go through the submission again and explain the proposal. I will try and do so succinctly, but we do have our experts here. So if there's a question with regard to engineering or anything like that, they can obviously come up and answer those questions. But I will try to be succinct. Also bearing in mind that there's a Yankee game tonight. But I want to start with the fact that this is a cluster development. And what that means. Because I've read the comments that have been submitted from the neighbors, and I think there's a belief that if the cluster subdivision is not approved, that then there can be no subdivision of this property. And that's not accurate. And I think the commission understands that, but I think it would be helpful to state, because frankly, that's how this cluster development regulation first came about. My client met with, who was then the planner at the time, Rick Schultz, about this property and about a subdivision there, and going with what would be, straight conventional subdivision. And in talking with them, with Mr. Schultz, they talked about cluster development type regulation, which you find in other towns, that affords the opportunity for, when you have a large space like this, instead of
using up maybe unnecessary open space. You have a cluster development that allows you to condense that development into a smaller area that fits with the character of the neighborhood, but preserves a large proportion of the open space that's there. So with regards to that, I just want to go over first the definition of cluster development under the regulations. The exact definition is a form of subdivision in which the lot sizes may be reduced in exchange for the provision of permanent open space upon as may be approved by the commission pursuant to section 6.14 of these regulations. So it is a form of subdivision. It's not the only one. And if you look at the purpose and intent of a cluster development, it says it is the intent of this section to provide an opportunity for flexibility through the option of a cluster development. So it's an alternative option. It's not the only option. The remaining option would be a conventional subdivision. A cluster development does not permit more lots than a conventional subdivision. So all this application is doing is really simple. It's taking an application that would be the full 31 acres of this piece for an 8-lot subdivision, and it's shrinking it down to lot sizes that we feel conform to the neighborhood. They are larger than any of the residential lots that it abuts, and it's condensing that with the benefit of preserving a tremendous amount of open space. But it's not, that's one of the requirements of being able to go for a cluster development, is that it's the same or less number of lots that you would be permitted in a conventional subdivision. And I just wanted to make that clear, because I think there might be members of the public who would be surprised then, like for instance, if this wasn't approved, that in 2 months we came back with a conventional subdivision application for the same number of lots, for the same number of wells, and it's just a regular subdivision application. And where under the regulations, only 15% of the property has to be designated as open space, whereas with what's proposed here before you, it's 57.8% of this property that is being preserved as open space. And again, I know this is something the commission is likely familiar with regards to standards of review for a conventional subdivision, but I think just to state it for everyone's benefit, the courts have, in exercising its function of approving or disapproving a subdivision, said that a planning commission acts in its administrative capacity. In passing upon a subdivision application, the commission is controlled by the regulations which it has previously adopted. The commission in a conventional subdivision is limited to determining whether or not the subdivision application complies with the subdivision regulations. It cannot consider off-site traffic conditions, municipal services, or the effect an approval on the property has on values in the area. A planning commission cannot disapprove a subdivision application for a reason or based upon a standard not contained in its existing regulations. And where a subdivision application meets the existing regulations of the planning commission, the commission must approve the application. So I think that's important context. And I'm not trying to be wise guy about it, but I'm just not sure folks understand that this cluster subdivision, we think, is just a better option for everybody in preserving this open space rather than a conventional, what would be across this entire 31 acres with only 15% open space. Briefly, just to go through the standards of the cluster development and how to satisfy them. And I think what you'll see is that this application not only meets some of these standards in the cluster development regs, it actually greatly exceeds them. But running quick, this property is located in R2 zone, which is needed for a cluster development. It's well above the minimum lot area, which is 15 acres. It's more than double it. The frontage required for a cluster development is 200 feet of frontage on a public highway. This property has many multiples of that. 34% open space is required under the cluster development regulations. we're proposing 57.8. Again, we're not proposing more lots than would be allowed under a conventional subdivision. We've submitted a plan that shows a 12-lot conventional subdivision. We're proposing 8. There's a requirement that the director of health does an analysis. If you look through your packet, there's comments from health that talked about how that this application is proposed can support 8 residences. They listed the number of bedrooms. Most were 4 bedrooms. There was a couple that were 5 bedrooms that could be supported on these lots. As far as the individual lots, your standards for an RF2 zone require a minimum of 1 acre. There's a lot of lots that are all the lots are well in excess of it. Some are exceed 1.5 acres. They're well in excess. They're also greater in size, as I was saying, as their neighboring residential lots. And in accordance with the regulations, we've submitted a full drainage plan and erosion plan. I can quickly, sorry, get there. Just run through these plans. Again, if there's anything that you need as far as engineer technical questions that you have, we do have our expert here to answer those. This is a map of the overall site. Again, it's 31 acres. It's split right now in between 2 lots, 1536 and 1564. You can see on there the wetlands on the right side. They've been compared to fingers that run there on the right side of the site. We've been to wetlands for approval. We received approval from wetlands for these 8 lots. This actually originally, when we had submitted to wetlands, was a 9-lot subdivision. In talking with wetlands and some of their concerns, we actually reduced it down to 8 building lots. Okay, so this is the proposal. As you can see, this area all to the right here is proposed as open space. You can see the drive that enters off the Monroe Turnpike. If you recall, this entrance, or what we're calling Sun Valley Drive, lines up across from Old Valley, Old Zion, Old Zor, sorry. So it's lined up. That was in conversations with DOT. We submitted that lining up that entrance right across from Old Zor, and that's why it's located where it is. We've also submitted plans showing that location has appropriate sight lines. But again, you can see there the lots, the 8 lots as proposed, almost all the lots, the houses are all outside the upland review area, the way that we've posted. I can show that. There's probably plans here that show that. As you can see, the red lines there being the upland review area. There's enough space on each of these lots that we can locate these houses all outside of that to get, make sure we get a good buffer to the wetlands. We show our drainage systems. You'll also probably remember there was a lot of talk last time we presented about the impact that this could have on 290 Cottage Street, which is the property located right here, as far as the flow of water. And at that time, when we, with that previous application, we added a swale to protect that neighbor, which is depicted here on that plan.
Please point that out, please. The soil.
I believe it's right here, if I'm correct.
It's alongside the drive.
I know it's alongside the driveway. So we agreed to put in a swale there to protect that neighbor.
I'm sorry.
Guys, you gotta wait. You gotta wait.
Please
all right?
hold the comments
But
until.
you'll be able to ask them. Don't worry.
So these are all just, again, further details on the engineering, on the grading. Again, if you have any specific questions with regards to that, happy to answer. Just further ones showing the road details regarding the road. I think that's about it. One of the things that was discussed at the last hearing, obviously it was a source of concern from the neighbors and from this commission, was with regards to wells. Proposal, 8 lots, 8 wells. Again, that's the same number of wells that you would have in a conventional subdivision, so it's not increasing the number of wells. But there were concerns. I reviewed the tape on this just to hear, make sure I had everybody's comments. I know Commissioner Lupo, you had asked for a review of the aquifer. Commissioner Condon, you had expressed a number of concerns. I think it basically boiled down to recharge and what would, basically with adding development, driveways, drainage systems, and everything like that, how does that affect recharge? And there was just a lot of questions about how it would be developed, and as far as how far down do you have to go, what's going to be the gallons per minute, what's going to be the yield of these wells, and how will that impact the neighborhood. And so we hired an expert who I'll have come up speak to you, run through her report, the records that she was able to obtain, and what's that, what her basically research into this issue has revealed. We also have Joey Tuttle. He does a number of wells. It's done a lot of wells in Monroe, and he can go through the construction of them and how they're done and run through that and just provide this commission more evidence that this subdivision will not have an impact on the surrounding neighborhood. So with that, unless there's any immediate questions on any of the engineering,
We'll come back. Go ahead. Go through everything.
So Karen, you want to introduce yourself? Oh, you wanted your presentation, sorry.
Good evening, my name is Karen Stephanus. I'm a hydrogeologist with the firm WSP USA. Our offices are located in Shelton.
Could you speak into the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. I'm a hydrogeologist. I am a certified professional geologist, and I'm also licensed environmental professional.
You guys can move up closer if you can't hear.
Right.
And just try to speak up a little bit, but please move closer.
Sorry. I have 35 years of experience, and the applicant had asked me, because of comments from the commission, to do a hydrogeologic assessment of the site and of the proposed development. I'm just going to run quickly through my assessment and the results, and then of course I can take any questions afterwards. I'm going to have to kind of.
I can also move the mic to be.
That might be.
Maybe, yeah. Thank you.
Is that microphone on?
I think the microphone actually is more for the video feed than it is.
You can yell at us, we're used to it.
I got it.
Okay, so as you know, it's the proposed subdivision is an 8-lot subdivision on 31.63 acres, and over 50% is going to be dedicated permanent open space, with lots that a minimum of 1 acre, but mostly closer to 1.5. The site has a very interesting relief to the south. Its elevation is about 426 feet, and then to the north, it goes down to 220. So there's about a 200-foot change in elevation from the southern end to the northern end. Groundwater flow goes towards the north, towards Lake Zor. So as part of a hydrogeologic assessment, it's really due diligence. The whole point of the assessment is to determine can this property sustain what's being proposed? And so the first thing we look at is the regional geology and what kind of wells would the applicant have to put in. So we looked at the overburden material. So that's the soil that's directly below grade. And that overlies bedrock. And when you're drilling wells, there's two types of material that we would encounter. Either sand and gravel, which are great wells. I mean, those have a lot of yield typically. Sand and gravel, it's usually homogeneous. But in this case, most of the soil, the whole site, is underlain by till, and that's glacial till. And so it's a mix. It's very heterogeneous. You've got sand, silt, clay, boulders. It's a mix. And so if you put a well in till, you're likely not going to have a very reliable well. And so what we recommend in cases like this is to install bedrock wells. And you're going to have a more reliable well if you have a bedrock well. So we looked at the regional maps, and the bedrock underlying the site is metamorphic. It consists of schist and also gneiss, and a combination of schist and gneiss. And these are metamorphic rocks. They're very hard rocks. They're not permeable. So water isn't going to pass through the rock itself. What happens is the water passes through seams and fractures and joints and planes and things like that. And so when you drill a well, it's really contingent on what fractures you've hit. It's what kind of yield you get. And so we get an idea of what the overall bedrock geology is. And we know it's hard metamorphic rock. And based on some of the records, and I don't know this because there is no well on the site yet, but I think that the top of bedrock for this area that they're going to develop is probably between 40 and 90 feet. Let's call it 70. So as part of the due diligence, we're looking to see is the demand of the project going to be supported by the recharge to the property. And you can look at the whole watershed that the property sits in, but that's, and you'll get water from outside sources. But for this assessment, I want to know, can the property sustain the 8 wells that are being proposed? Does the recharge to your property recharge the bedrock enough that it can sustain the demand? And in addition, then I also look at what else contributes to overall recharge. And all of the homes are being served by septic systems. So any kind of wastewater or, dishwasher, laundry, things like that, goes through the septic system. 85% of that water gets returned into the system. It doesn't go directly to bedrock. It just goes into the ground, and it goes part of the groundwater system. So I look at the demand. I look at what we call the septic return, and then the consumptive use, and that's what is lost to evaporation and transpiration and surface water runoff, things like that. And then you do a balance. You say, okay, I have this demand and I have this recharge, and subtract the demand from the recharge. Do I have a deficit or a surplus? And if there's a deficit, I would certainly say to the applicant, you have a problem. You either have to reduce the number of wells or number of lots because the property can't sustain it, or you need to find an alternative means to supply water. And this is really contingent on the bedrock aquifer. So based on the Connecticut Health Code, for the 4-bedroom residents, they're required to provide 525 gallons a day, which is less than half a gallon a minute per house. And multiply that for the entire development of 8 homes, that's 4,200 gallons per day, or less than 3 gallons a minute for a well. The consumptive demand is now what would happen if you take into account the septic system. So you get 85% return. It reduces, because you're getting all this return back, it reduces the consumptive demand from 525 gallons a day to 79 gallons a day. and multiply that out for the 8 residences, and it's a total demand of 630 gallons per day. So what I want to look at as part of the due diligence is, let's take out the septic system. Can the recharge supply the demand without the recharge of the septic system? And then also include what would happen, to account for the septic return. So, groundwater recharge. This is the groundwater that gets returned to the bedrock. So, in an average year, and the record that I looked at was 1991 to 2021, I think it was. I had an almost 30-year range because you want to account for dry years and wet years. So the average recharge to the area is 43.99 inches per year, water that recharges into that actually falls in Monroe. So this diagram kind of shows, you get your rain cloud, you get precipitation, you get the water goes and it gets taken up by evaporation and by the plants, it's transpiration. Some infiltrates, some goes deeper, and then eventually some goes into bedrock. So this is just a schematic, it's just to kind of give an idea. So of the 40, let's just call it 44 inches per year, half of that gets lost to evaporation and transpiration. So what falls in a year, half of it gets lost right off the bat, over the span of the year. But the other half then goes into overland surface runoff and then also groundwater recharge in the overburden material that's directly below grade, and then some of that goes even further and goes down into bedrock. And there have been a number of studies that have been done in Western Connecticut and New York with the same type of situation where you have till covering bedrock, and they've been long duration studies. So it's not like they're very good studies done by the USGS. And for this type of material, we've seen ranges between 7 inches of the 44 inches that actually makes it to the bedrock to almost 8.5 inches. So that's a span of like 520 gallons per day to 629 gallons a day. So if you take a more conservative approach, which would be the 7 inches of recharge is what I assume, and you multiply it out by the entire acreage of the development, you get about 16,400 gallons per day as recharge. So now we're going to compare the recharge, like I said, to the demand. You're taking the site recharge and subtracting it out, 4,200, subtracted from the 16,000. That's the demand of the project. Gives us a surplus of over 12,000 gallons per day, 3 times what the demand is for the 8 homes. And then, of course, if you account for the 85% of being returned from the septic, you get even more a surplus because your consumptive demand goes from 4,200 to 630. So you get a surplus of about 15,800 gallons per day. And we looked at this for average precipitation and also drought conditions, and we came up with a surplus under both conditions so that the recharge definitely exceeded the demand. So one of the questions that was raised is, what about wells? And I don't know how many people are familiar what the construction of the well is, and Mr. Donald, he's going to be talking about wells in more depth. But overall, you have a 6-inch diameter casing that goes down to and into bedrock, and then the casing gets grouted into place, so it creates a seal, and then they drill through that as an open hole to a certain depth. And the code from Connecticut for drillers is that so if you have to have storage. You have a certain minimum storage in your well based on your yield. So it's, for example, if you have a well that's 5 gallons a minute, you need to have 75 gallons of storage. And the relationship is it's a foot of standing water is about 1.5 gallons of water. So if you wanted to have, storage of 75 gallons, you need a well of 100 feet. So in this case, we would need 525 gallons of water per house. And that means that you can get additional storage by going deeper. If you have a half a gallon a minute well, you could actually get 500 feet of storage, 500 gallons of storage by having 350 feet. So there's ways of deepening a well to add storage. So, it's variable, and the yield of the well is going to depend, again, on the fractures. So, we can talk more about that. But one of the other things that I did as part of the assessment was look at neighboring wells within 1,000 feet. And I looked at the MetroCog, the Connecticut Metropolitan Council of Government website, which has, I think it's 5 towns, I think it might be 5, maybe 6 towns. The well records are in the database. So you can go to the database and look at the property, and then if there's an available well record, you can download it. I also confirmed a few of the well logs that I couldn't read very well with the Monroe Health Department because they have the original logs, and then also checked the Connecticut Consumer Protection website, and they have well logs from 1970 up. And based on that, there were 35 well logs that were available for review. And the purpose of the inventory is not so much to focus on, a particular property, but it was to get an idea in this area, what kind of yields were people seeing for this bedrock, like what was the range? And so the well depths ranged from 100 feet to 600 feet. Depth to bedrock was from 6 feet up in the southern area on Manor Drive to 125 feet up in the northern area. And the rates varied from half a gallon to over 30 gallons a minute. So, almost half of the wells were greater than 5 GPM, and half were, a little bit more than half were less than 5 GPM. And it ranged. So it gave me an idea of, okay, if all 35 well records were less than half a gallon a minute, I would, again, be concerned. I recognize that there's recharge to the property, but the reality is, out of 35 wells, if they're all not doing well, then that's something that would have to be considered. So one of the things that I wanted to show is this proposal is for 8 individual wells. It's on a community supply well. So people are going to be using their wells on and off throughout the day. And this is just a typical hydrograph of what a well usage looks like in part of the course of a day. So each vertical line represents a day. And you can see that in some cases, in the early part of the day and the later part of the day, it seems like that's when most of the use occurs. But in between, there's no use, and the water levels rebound back up. They recover back to what their normal static is. So I just, I don't know how many people are familiar with their wells and how wells respond. But this is generally, it's cyclical. So a well will, when it turns on, the water level goes down, and then when the pump goes off, the water recovers. So based on this study, through this assessment, we determined that the best type of well would be a bedrock well. That the bedrock is, it's hard, it's metamorphic, but that there's joints and seams that water would come from. That the proposal has the water demand is 4,200 gallons per day. And if you account for what's being returned through the septic, then you're seeing a reduction to 630 gallons a day. The recharge definitely shows that there's surplus of water in both the regular water demand and in, obviously with the septic return. And that the neighboring well records indicate that this property should be able to provide enough water per house, and that because of the demand, because the recharge is greater than the demand, there shouldn't be any kind of impact to the aquifer. Of course, there are no wells, so there was no testing on the site, but it's purely a study on recharge and demand. So I don't know.
Yeah. Doesn't answer questions. Well, just.
Yeah, I'm Joey Tuttle. I've drilled wells for 50 years. I've drilled a lot of the wells. A lot of the wells that were in the study there, I drilled a lot of the wells. That area there is bad for water. I've generally found in my experience, I've never really drilled in a subdivision that we had any effect on a neighbor's wells, just because they recharge during the day. People don't use that much water really. It just seems to come back. And no, I really haven't had any experience in 50 years of working in some 20, 30 lot subdivisions. And they never seem to affect the neighbor's wells. They don't affect the other wells in the subdivision either. You start off, you drill the first few wells. By the time you get to the end, the first ones aren't dry. You're not really drawing all out of the exact same aquifer all the time. You're getting different seams. You get some wells with 1 gallon a minute, some wells with 20 gallons a minute, right in the same subdivision, maybe right next door. But it just seems like it doesn't really affect the neighbors. I haven't really had any experience in having it affect the neighbors at all. If anybody has if you have any questions about it, I could answer specific questions. Yeah, I'll be doing these wells, and we do them the old-fashioned cable tool method. We pound the wells. We don't use any high pressure air or anything like that, so it has less impact even on anything around the area. Just it gets a lot more water at a shallower depth, so we probably won't be going real deep on these wells. And they'll be all bedrock wells. Casing will be sealed in the bedrock, so they won't affect the surface water. If anybody has a shallow hand-dug well or something, it won't have any effect on that.
Okay, so if there's any questions regarding the wells, Joey or Karen.
All right, so we can do some questions now. Start with the commissioners on my right. The questions regarding the wells.
What happens if there's I know there's some years are dry, some are more wet, but what if there's 2 or 3 dry years in a row? How would that affect anything?
Well, usually the wells, if you drill the wells deep enough to start with, and that's the problem is a lot of times people say, well, it's going to affect my well. My well's really bad. It goes dry every summer. Well, it's a bad well to start with before you do anything. They should drill it deeper or drill another well. If you go deep enough and get the water down deeper, usually the drought doesn't affect it. Some wells are affected by drought all the time. Some are only affected. We have wells sometimes that people call only 1 month a year they have trouble, and the other 11 months is good. But generally, if you go deep enough originally, and you get in that area there, you get decent water. You're not talking a quart a minute. You get 5 or 6 gallons a minute, 10 gallons a minute. They usually don't go dry in drought. But if they have problems, you drill the well deeper and get more storage in the well, so that it'll get them through the drought.
And Jody, to the point, one of the things that might differentiate this well from some of those shallower wells that are in the area is that this well would have storage and it's required to have storage, whereas some of those wells.
Well, a lot of the time, the wells, especially the really old wells, they'd be 100 feet deep with 3 or 4 gallons a minute, and it was fine for the people. They'd have 1 bathroom, they'd wash dishes by hand. They never use much. They wouldn't water the lawn or do anything like that. So you get a well that puts out 300 or 400 gallons a day, and that's plenty of water. Of course, then they go to sell the house afterward, and then they have to drill a new well because the new people coming in want to have another bathroom. They want to 2 showers a day instead of 2 baths a week like it used to be back in the 50s and stuff. And people just didn't use a lot of water back then. And the wells, back then, my father used to drill wells that were 100 feet deep, 60 feet deep, 80 feet deep. We hardly ever drill anything that shallow now because people use more water now. They have dishwashers, washing machines. So you use a lot more water now than you used to use. And so some of these old wells that are still 100 feet deep, or some people have been using them and they're used to them. When they go to sell the house and they say the well's not up to code. Now we have a code. We have to have enough depth and enough yield to be able to sustain whatever the people use. That's what they can. So if you don't have a lot of water, you just have to go deeper. And then you can't, they won't give you a CO unless you have enough water.
So you're saying if the new wells go deep enough, they won't affect the shallow wells?
Like if we have a well that had 5 gallons a minute, the code is 100 feet, but we usually try to go 150, 200 feet, try to get more than the code. So if it gets a little dry spell and you lose a couple gallons a minute, you'll still have enough water to sustain the house. We don't like to get them right on the exact code that this is the minimum that you need. And we try to go a little deeper than that to try to give them a little better well than that. We've had pretty good success around this area here.
So in one of the letters, there's a neighbor who has a 12-foot hand dug well. What are the thoughts on your wells affecting that?
It wouldn't affect it at all because I could drill a well right next to that hand dug well and seal the casing into the bedrock and it wouldn't affect it at all. The problem with the hand dug wells is that they get contaminated and people don't usually they replace the hand dug wells. If you go to sell the house, a bank won't even give you a loan on a mortgage on a house with a hand dug well because they get contaminated too easy. And they go dry when you get a drought, they go dry. A well like that they should really have a drilled well. But these wells wouldn't affect it at all because we're putting the casing into the bedrock and sealing off all the surface water, and that's just surface water. So we wouldn't have any effect on our hand.
Got it. So the 12-foot is probably pulling from surface water. You're going to be down into the bedrock going from veins.
Yeah, if we go down and seal off the surface water, so that well would just percolate. If the water table is up enough so they can use that well, it'll just go with just the water, like the surface water table. It won't have anything to do with the drilled well, so that wouldn't affect that at all.
All right. And then any thought into tapping the subdivision as city water? Is that possible on this site? Was that looked at?
I think it's too far, 2,200 feet away.
Okay. And we just doing wells and water questions right now?
No, any question?
Any questions? Back to Attorney Russo.
Yes.
The numbers on the open space in the beginning, if this wasn't coming in front of us as a cluster, what was the requirement for a subdivision?
Subdivision requirement is 15%.
15, and then what are you guys currently proposing? 57.8. How much of the 57.8 though is wetlands that wouldn't be developable?
One of these slides, I have the total wetland area. I'm gonna have to do calculations out, but I think we have the total wetland area on here.
And then while he's doing that, I'm just going to clarify one thing. So when you're asking what could be developed, that's a different question than what could be included as part of the 2-acre lot. Our zoning regulations do allow 50% of a lot to be wetlands or steep slopes. So just because it's a wetland or a steep slope doesn't mean that it wouldn't be allowed to be included in that minimum 2-lot area. No, you probably can't build a house on it. You can't develop it, but you can have it as part of the individual lot.
But is it safe to say that 57.8 minus the wetlands would probably be maybe a more appealing, like this is really how much open space we're giving?
Yeah, I think
for the neighbors, just kind of.
Well, just to give you the number, so on the plan, it shows the proposed open space area is 18 acres, just over 18 acres. The wetlands and greater than 20% slopes within that area is 8.65 acres.
Okay.
So there's still 10 over. I'll also say
it's
when
over
we
30%.
had our inland wetlands application, the town hired a third-party consultant, his name's Dr. Clemens. And he obviously said the wetlands was an important area, but he also said that the area above where we're proposing the open space was an important area for just general ecology, I think with the wildlife that was there and everything. So we are including that within the open space area. Show.
I just, give that number because I think it's a little more genuine, I think. And I know you weren't probably purposely trying to smudge it, but.
No, and again, it's the requirement under the regs is 34%. We're above 20%. And so, I think we're showing what I think is a reasonable development. And again, the other thing too is we're permitted 1 acre lots, but we haven't gone down to the bare minimum on each of those lots or tried to squeeze in, another lot with everything being an acre. We're proposing lots that I think are really, a generous size considering what are the requirements of the regulations.
And then last thing, can we zoom in because we did talk water in the past and we are concerned as much as I'm concerned of wells not getting water, we're also concerned about these properties getting too much water because we've seen it historically. But yeah, if we can zoom in on, I believe Ms. Jelly's property, talk about that for a second.
Swale there. Yeah, I think there's a note here for the swale. 1 second, let me see. This one, right? Yep. Proposed 2-foot wide swale right here.
So, yeah, maybe just show where we project the direction of water would be going.
My name is Ian Miller. I'm an engineer with J. Edwards and Associates. So in regards to this specifically, we have to remember water flows downhill. The concern is that somebody's going to get extra water because we have more impervious surface there, that driveway, the house, and roof and stuff. What the swale is meant to do is to interrupt that on its downhill slide so that it ends up in our stormwater management system, as opposed to running down that hill and increasing the runoff into that lot.
Can you just kind of show maybe the property to the south and maybe just an idea of where that direction would kind of go?
So that's 290.
So this is 290 here.
Yeah.
And as you can see, it's a little steep on its way down and it sort of flattens out to a degree, but even up here where it's still steep at the edge of the development, we're catching that water there and it's going to end up down in the rest of the drainage system.
Okay, and that was the other question I had. So then we also have within this property some drainage systems and stuff that will also collect kind of that potential flood water to an extent, obviously, and redirect it so it's not necessarily affecting the properties, but going into stormwater.
Right. In addition, just as a note, that water that's being collected is being put into drainage basins and a few subsurface infiltration systems. That means that water gets recharged too. So her recharge numbers are still accurate, even though we have a bunch of impervious, because that water stays on the site. That's one of the requirements of doing drainage in Monroe, right? That water stays on its own site. So that recharge maintains.
And the other thing too, I think Jason talked about this last time, Ryan, is right now, because there's nothing there, that water would just come, it would just sheet flow. Whereas if it goes into the drainage system, that's controlling the release of water, right? And it's slowing it down slightly.
Same amount of rain always falls. Now, of course, woods and grasses and things will slow that down and collect it and let it infiltrate a little bit on its own. And hardscape will certainly have it move faster. That's why we have collection systems, right? So again, just to be clear, all that water that's falling on that site is still the same amount of water. What we're increasing in runoff by being hardscape, we're collecting and keeping off the site.
That's all I got.
Maini.
All right. So my question is about the wells. I know we're saying it's not going to affect anybody around us, correct? Either one. Anyone that wants to talk about it.
I'm saying that it's a low probability.
How low is this probability? Like if you were to put a percentage on it.
I would say,
You're the professional, because I could guess, but being a roofer, it's not going to help you.
again, not having the physical well to test.
I mean, but you did a lot of studies, you did a lot of stuff, and
I would say, probability less than 5%.
okay.
And then I think, Jody also
I
spoke
would
to his
agree with that,
experience.
too. I've never had one where it really affected the neighbors' wells.
Okay, it just, we're saying it's not going to affect, but no one's ever putting their foot down and saying, hey, from all the research I did, from everything I'm looking at, you're just saying blanketly that it's not going to affect anybody. But when you tell me it's 5%, it's a low percentage, and that's what.
And it's tough to get like an
So-
absolute, say, 0 probability on something. They just
Listen, there's not zero probability in anything in life. So if you said to me 0, I would tell you you're kind of full of something. So Mr. Tuttle, when you're digging the wells, however you do it, I know nothing about wells, so if I sound like a fool, it's because I know nothing. So when you're digging this well, how do you know that you're not on, or is there a way to know that you're not on someone else's aquifer, or does that not matter? Do you not know if you're tapping into the person above you's aquifer? Is there a way to know? Does it matter if you know?
Really, I mean, everything is just seams in the bedrock.
Okay.
So I could drill a well here and get a lot of water. I could drill a well here and get almost no water, just 5 feet apart. It's just where you miss the seams. It's not like one big aquifer there that everybody taps into the same aquifer. It's just whatever seams you happen to go through to get it. And that's why there's so many seams. It's very low probability that you're going to hit the same seam that somebody else's well is on. It's going to affect it negatively. We've connected with other wells and affected them positively, because if we get a lot of water, then whatever we get, they get. So if we have to drill our well and get it up to code, then their well's going to get the same water, if that happens. But most of the time it doesn't. Because we know, because if it connects, their well water gets dirty when I'm drilling the well. The neighbor comes over and says, my water just got all dirty, then you connected. That almost never happens, even when it's right next door. Not like, like a couple hundred feet away or 100 feet away. It doesn't usually happen.
Can you give me an idea of how you figure out where the well goes on a property?
Well, the engineer usually puts on, you have to be 75 from the septic, you have to be 25 from any drains, you have to be, some towns want you 50 feet to 75 from the property line. So once you get all the codes in there, then it narrows it down. And then you get to one area where you can put it, and then we're going to put a pool here, so we want to slide it over here. And it's usually where you can, and then where you can get the rig too. If the slope is like this, you're not going to set up a rig, so you have to have a place to get the rig. But we don't go and say, well, this is probably more likely to get water here, because the water, you can get it, you're either going to get it or not get it, no matter where you drill on the property. It's just, you pretty much, but usually it's on the plan. And a lot of times when they put it where they put it on the plan is where the sanitarian wants the well, because it's already been, the plan's been approved and they put it there. But you take into account, where can you get the rig? Is it far enough from all the separating distances? And then you go and you drill a well. And about 99% of the time we get a good well. Sometimes there's some places where there's no water. I haven't had anything in Monroe that I had no water. In that area there, they're all pretty good in that area.
And you feel in your experience and through your studies here that these houses don't affect anybody below them?
It shouldn't, because we're just in the bedrock. So it's just wherever the bedrock goes, wherever the seams of the bedrock, that's all it's going to affect it. The elevation of the wells doesn't really affect it.
Okay. Now, my question is about the swale. So thank you for your help. I really appreciate it. Questions about the swale. How is it installed?
Well, there is a detail on there, right? So generally,
How's it installed?
it's this, what are you looking for? A machine digs a whole trench, and then you line it with liner and rock and so on and so forth.
Right. And it's how deep?
This one is, it's 2 foot wide, it's probably a foot deep, but I gotta go to the detail sheet. Yep. Sorry about this, I am not. Anyway, we have standard details for them. Usually if they're 2 feet wide, it's half down, it'll be about a foot deep total.
So you're basically just trying to collect the surface water from any rain that's coming.
Right, so whatever sheets across that
Okay.
is not caught by the downward direction of the driveway, which is mostly concerned with the driveway, is the only thing that really creates a lot of extra water from what was there to begin with. So whatever escapes the driveway, we catch in that swale and then we bring it.
So with the woods, you were saying that they collect the woods and the grasses and all that kind of stuff will collect a lot more surface water.
Right, so.
Now,
Okay, go ahead. Nope.
now, they're obviously going to be gone, most of them. And you think, how long is that swale?
Oh. I don't know if it's labeled here, but I'm gonna guess based upon my familiarity with stuff, that's probably about 150 feet long, maybe 200.
Okay, so go with 200. So being a foot deep, you believe that it's going to collect all that surface water that sheets down and it's going to get redirected into catch basin?
Right, so again, the point of the swale is that it catches the water that comes out when you use these standard details. Most of the time they are way oversized for whatever your purpose use is, but we do calculations that make sure that those work. I don't know if I have that stuff directly with me, but remember, we went through a few rounds of this previously, so this stuff has been vetted by the town engineers and that sort of thing too. So generally speaking, you oversize your ability to catch water, right? Your curb lines, all of that stuff is there to like, no one wants to minimize any sort of catchment.
Yeah, I'm just, in my head, just thinking you're going to get a pretty substantial amount of runoff from going from little to no trees to, I mean, I know there's a landscape plan and I know there's going to be grasses and I know there's going to be stuff like that. And I know they're going to redirect some stuff.
So the driveway is going to catch some of that runoff
Right,
too,
the curb
right?
on one side of that driveway.
Can you show us how that works?
So you see how this side is a heavier line? That's the curb line on that side of the driveway, the downhouse side of the driveway.
Where does that water go?
That all hit, so the water from the driveways goes to the, right, you can see that there are area drains at the bottoms of the driveways to help catch that water. Those go into the overall street system so that the street doesn't get flooded, and that water ends up in our detention basins on the side.
What's the elevation from that curb to that street?
What's the elevation from?
Keep going. Keep going. Like right there to the street. Is it 280 like I see right there at the curb?
Yep.
And then what's it at the street?
It looks like we're floating somewhere around 292, 294, 295.
So the street's higher than the...
So we're catching, I didn't realize which way we were going, I apologize. This base, this down here gets the water from there. Right? And then we have I apologize, I did not realize we were looking at the lot with its own drainage system on it. So we're catching the water there. A swale is must be for the actual lawn. It's coming down the slope that we're creating for the septic system.
Right, so what's protecting 290? Did you say you said you put in a swale to protect the property at the bottom? What's protecting it?
So You have that elevation of 280 at the edge of the driveway.
And you said it was going to the street, which is 290.
Right, I was mistaken.
Okay.
But 280 at the edge of the driveway, it's 260 down below the septic system. Septic system almost always, in fact, always is in the lot, right?
Right.
So that slope exists on that lot, heading down. The swale is there to catch that water.
All right, so is that 106 right there that I see in the bottom left-hand corner? What's that? Is that another swale that's going into that catch basin?
No, that 106, that's a test hole.
Okay. So I'm assuming that where it's 280 and where your 106 test hole, is that lower? That 106 test hole, is that lower than the 280?
Yes, see this 260.
So is that a swale right there?
260 right here.
What is that line then that's there? The proposed 2 foot wide swale? So where's that water going?
Here at the end of the swale is
Another catch basin?
no, it's probably a
Level spreader.
level spreader.
So you catch that water there, if anything's running off, you catch it into the level spreader and that goes where? Just back into the ground?
Right, it slows it, keeps the erosion from going down, spreads it out, and then it should reinfiltrate.
It should.
And that's what it's designed for.
Okay.
Yep.
Basically, the driveway that pitches out towards the front of the house into some
Right.
of drainage system.
Right, but he's asking about this specific issue about the swale, which I understand. Like I said, I misunderstood where we were, and so this is lower than the driveway from the street, right? So, the idea is that the swale.
But you have a curb in front of it also, correct?
Right. That water from the driveway goes here.
So anything in the driveway has catch basins, either at the bottom or at that 260 point.
Per the stormwater regulations, anything that's impervious surface, they have to collect
Correct.
and treat. They can't
I
allow,
was just confused by the numbers, that's all.
they can't allow it to surface runoff.
No, I apologize. I was
It's all good.
misremembering where we were. Right, so any other questions about that swale and what it's supposed to catch? It's supposed to catch the lawn water in that area and then let it spread out instead of rolling up.
Right, so it's going to spread out, and then what's to the left of that where it spreads out?
Is that our
That's our
remaining,
property.
that's our
That's the
remaining
remainder of our
land?
property.
It's going to go
Right.
out there.
And you can see the property line for 290 right there.
So how far away, like, is that level spreader to that property line?
That is right on the offset, so.
No. I mean,
The spread right here from our
yes.
property.
No. From the 290 property, right there. How far is that?
See right out, I mean, this is the setback.
Give me a rough idea.
It's probably 40 or 50 feet. Just based on knowing that setback's probably 25, so just as a
I
guess.
can get you the setback. Yeah.
So because of the impervious surface above it, that water gets collected in a couple catch basins, depending on where it goes and where it lands. You're seeing that 2 foot wide, 1 foot deep swale, pushing it out 50 feet or so past her properties is enough.
Well, remember that water.
Well, you're going to have less because of the impervious surface, but what I'm saying is what's going in there you feel is enough.
Yes.
Thank you. No more questions.
So, I just want to clarify, one concern with the, Mr. Tuttle, the well expert. The fact that we're dealing with a slope topography in this particular, development is, from what I'm gathering, not a concern, or it shouldn't change anything as far as what's happening under the.
Because we go to the bedrock, and then there might be a slope with the bedrock, and maybe on the highest slope, it might be 40 or 50, it might be 60 or 70 feet to bedrock. Down on the lower end of the slope, it might be 30 or 40. And the bedrock can be fairly flat, or the bedrock can be going right up the slope, but you still will drill the well a couple hundred feet into the bedrock. So the difference in the slope won't make that much.
And if this does wind up being, 500 or 600 foot deep well, it could actually be lower than some of the properties that are downstream to the actual development, correct?
It could be, I guess it could be lower into the bedrock, but generally our wells are between 200 and 300 feet. It's about, we don't go much deeper than that usually.
Okay.
Every so often we get a deep one, but most of them are. I'm assuming that the wells there aren't going to be that deep. I know when my father did a Stevenson lumber years ago, it was only like 150 or something.
My understanding is, I know we got some information from the hydrogeologist, but I was under the assumption that a typical household uses around 80 gallons a day. Does that sound right?
No, well, they say 100 gallons a day per person to figure that, but that's usually kind of high.
That's really high.
And
Yeah.
like, I think like 50, because now everything's water savers. You know, you take a shower, it uses 3 gallons a minute. But it depends. I mean, I take a shower in 5 minutes. You know, you have a daughter with long hair, she'll take a shower for an hour. So it really, you know, it depends on the person too, how much you use water. But of course, your well depends on that too. If you have a well that's not fantastic, you tell them, no, don't stay in the shower for an hour. Just go in there, you know. So you pretty much use your usage to the well, but we usually try to give them a well that they can use whatever they need.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Also.
All right, so bear with me. So Karen and Mr. Tuttle, I think that's your first name, but you can sit for a minute. So I really appreciate all the studies you did and all the information. I mean, a lot of my questions were answered. There's just one, my specific concern, I don't think I heard answered yet. So my concern was not about whether or not the wells on this property were going to be able to recharge. My concern was about the surrounding properties, not necessarily just the 1,000 feet away, but the ones further than 1,000 feet up the hill in Stevenson, up on top of the hill, where was this property going to pull from the same aquifer as those? And is this particular property is going to pull from the same water table that those folks up on the hill are pulling from? And because the town and the Department of Health and the state, you couldn't locate those maps for those people and those residents, I should say, I'm still not hearing that this isn't going to cause any impact on those wells. And maybe one of you can particularly answer that for me. So my concern is these wells are great. I have no problem that this development sounds like is going to be able to get their wells, get their water, and the house next door is going to get their water. However, are they going to pull any water from the houses up, since you know the area, up from Downdroad, Cottage Street, Sunrise Terrace, all those up there? Are they going to have any problem because these are pulling water into that?
Well, we've done some up, you know, all the way up the hill there, but you know, that's not the highest point either. You keep going up to Webb Circle, and all up on top of Webb Circle is all running down through that same area too. So that would be recharging that time, but everything runs downhill.
Right.
But when you're in the bedrock, sometimes you get a well that overflows. It's getting, you know, some of the water's down 100 feet. It never comes up any higher. Static's down 100 feet. It depends on where it's actually coming from.
Okay.
But the ones up on top of it are probably getting recharged, I would say, from the higher areas that are up there. I mean, and surface water recharge. I mean, they're getting the bedrock. It can get recharged up 50 miles away in the bedrock.
Okay.
Right, and just to work off that. So what I did was I wanted to make sure that the recharge that comes directly on our site would be able to supply the wells. And that means that the influence outside would be minimal. It would be indiscernible is what I would say.
Right, but is this going to make the recharge at those other wells
No.
less than, I should say?
No, those wells up the hill are getting their recharge. It's going to be the same recharge that they get.
Okay.
And we're part of that system, right? So it's an overall watershed. And if we're in that watershed, we're all getting that water.
Okay.
Our usage is not going to impact that. they're still gonna get recharged.
That was my questions. I started researching and saw some studies that said if you're at the bottom of a hill like this,
Yeah,
that if you have wells at the bottom pulling, it could impact the recharge at the top. So that was my concern from the beginning.
Yeah.
Was the impact of this on the folks that are up there that have had wells well before 1970.
Right.
That don't have any maps in the town hall.
Right.
Are those going to go dry more often?
You have to understand that, like we've been trying to say, it's gonna depend, there may be a connection.
Mhm.
It depends on if you get that same fracture.
Okay.
So you can you can hit a fracture that is connected to something 5 feet away or, 500 feet away. Typically, when we do a lot of these studies for water companies, we expand out to 1,000 feet or for bedrock. Just because you don't know which way the fractures go and how they interconnect. So to your point, if you're connected, these wells cycle on and off. They're not running 24/7. So you're not, I don't think you would hear any kind of connection would be because I know that the property is getting the amount of recharge it needs to support its well.
Okay.
For each well.
Thank you. No further questions.
I got two more. Mail collection, is it at each individual house on the property?
Mail collection?
Mail collection, or is there a set mailbox down at like the?
Each
Yeah, a mailbox and then with garbage collection, all that individually by lot. And then there's no sidewalks inside the property.
There's no sidewalks with, what we're calling Sun Valley Drive. Yeah, there's no.
Nothing on there. I mean, there
I
might
think
be.
we had a conversation about that last time about cul-de-sacs usually, especially once it's small, usually you don't see.
New application.
Yeah, no, true. Good point. Good point.
All right. That's it.
And to that effect, because I know there was a discussion at the last hearing about sidewalks along Monroe Turnpike. There was a lengthy discussion by the commission. I actually think Commissioner Mayini, I think you suggested as a condition, and then there's a lot of discussion about it, and you actually drew that.
Yeah, there was a spot that you're just not going to be able to put
It's
up.
just, and it's, there is, if you look at the survey, there's a gap there too. It doesn't, the property line doesn't go right along.
No, there was one spot you were going to never be able to do it.
Right, and if you remember too, there's there's the water course goes under, and in order to do that, we would have to fill a lot of wetlands to be able to put that sidewalk. And there was also a huge problem with where that water would be diverted while that was being constructed. So it caused issues.
Thank you.
For the record.
Do you have another question?
Yeah, I just have I have two concerns about the drainage. One is during construction. Once everything is clear cut and it's just kind of a bunch of flat mud, what's going to prevent runoff? Like, when do those swells and catch basins get installed?
So as usual, we conform to the state's requirements and manual for erosion control. Well, I'll hold the erosion control map if I can find it. It's probably these. Okay, so this is an example of one of the erosion control sheets. So what we do is, in addition to, that's the one specifically for that, right? Erosion control plan. Okay, so as usual, what we do is we create temporary diversion swells and temporary basins in order to catch all that silt and stuff. Like you said, you start work, you have everything clear cut, or one lot at a time, it depends on the builder, and then with the road being cut in. And so what we do is we set up the system so that we can get that water, and especially that dirt, into places where it can sit, settle out, percolate out. Sometimes you have to clean that stuff in the middle. And if you read our erosion control notes, you'll see that there are requirements for maintenance of that stuff during the process. as well as stabilization afterwards. Very often, you'll see a couple of these are the case here, like this one. Those are built at the site of where there's going to be a detention basin. And they get cleaned out before that is converted into that detention basin. So because you're already sort of going to build that anyway, we use it as a place to divert that silt from water. So again, in construction of subdivisions like this one, we have a pretty standard way that we do these. Obviously, the town has a inspector that goes out. The project usually has an inspector that walks around and makes sure. We all know that weather has been a little funky over the last few years, so we keep a good eye on it whenever we build these. And we do our best to make sure that we contain all of that runoff and all that silt. And a lot of silt, lots of it.
And then the other question would be, you know, all right, so once everything's in, a couple years down the road, we know, like, there's leaves, there's debris, things get clogged. What happens if something fails? Who's responsible? You know, will it be repaired?
So we do have a maintenance plan on the detail sheet. So what we're supposed to do, you clean that stuff out twice a year. As I understand it, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the HOA is supposed to end up doing that. The town is not going to be responsible. I don't remember what the discussion was.
I'm just worried about something getting clogged, and then we have runoff, and then we have damage.
They have to be maintained. Somebody's got to do it. I don't know personally from my end of it who's responsible for that.
But so what if it fails and we have someone's property damaged? Then what?
That's beyond my scope, right? Like I just know how to build them, right? This must happen, right? So what happens in town if a detention basin fails?
This is going to be a town road.
Right.
The town's going to maintain the.
This is a town road. However, the stormwater is located on private property. My understanding is that Public Works is not going to be maintaining this. And this was in my comment memo, if you remember.
It was the drainage easement, but then there would be there would basically be a road association that would be responsible for maintaining it.
So let's follow up with that. Our town engineer isn't on tonight, but that's something that we can talk to him about and get you guys a very clear answer on what that.
I mean, that does need maintenance.
Correct. It does need maintenance. Someone does need to be responsible for it. It was one of my questions in my last comment memo, exactly, of who's going to be responsible for maintaining the stormwater basins, because yes, they're taking it town road stormwater, but they're also on private property. And my understanding from my initial conversation with them from the last application is that their preference is to not maintain it.
Yeah, typically we form a road association, and they would be responsible for the one that's for the road, and then each lot owner would be obligated for the ones on their lot, and if they didn't, then it would be a violation, and the town could issue a violation order. Because they are, with the approval and the plan that's submitted, it tells them how often they're supposed to.
Right. If you have a combination of individual lot systems and the detention basins, so some combination of that, I would suppose. That's more him than me.
Good.
Kathleen, do you have anything before we go to the public?
As it relates to the well logs that you got your information from, can someone talk about, like, because we don't have our health department on here, how the well logs are created, who creates them, who inputs them into the system?
The driller fills.
Understood, but can you just explain it? There's been a lot of comments about how the report's incomplete because X, Y, and Z wells weren't included, but I would like to, in response to that, talk about how those well logs are created and how they're inputted.
After the well is done, you fill out the completion report and you give it to the sanitarian. Before they get a CO in the house, they have to have that well completion report. So the sanitarian has it and they file it, and then the state has a copy of it and they file it. So but the old wells, there was no completion report. There was no permits, no completion reports. But now you have to file a completion report for the last 40 years or so.
And if you wanted your information included, you would have to hire a well contractor to come out and to do, like if somebody wanted to do a well completion report now,
Now you really couldn't
it's
because,
not even possible.
because you have, in the completion report, you have to tell where you hit the bedrock, where you hit the water. You might say, well, 50 feet, I hit a gallon a minute. At 100 feet, I hit 2 more gallons a minute. And at 200 feet, I hit 6 gallons a minute. And it asks what the formation is. So you wouldn't be able to just look at the well and tell that. You have to-
So it'd even be difficult now to
The drill is
retroactively
the
go
only
back
one
to
that
get
really
that
could do it.
information.
You could do a yield test on it. You could tell how much water's in the well. You could measure the depth and see if it's up to code, if somebody needed that. That's usually what they do when they sell the houses. Now they want a well inspection for the real estate. So you go and you check as much as you can on it. You do the yield test is the main thing. Because that's ultimately, that's the most important thing, is to have enough water in the well. You can always replace the pump or something, but you gotta have enough water in the well.
Understood. Thank you.
We fill out all those. Now they want you to do them all online.
Yeah.
So that's a pain, so I just fill them out anyway. I don't do it.
Well, as someone who's been pushing for us to do a lot of things online.
They do, the state does everything online now.
Yeah. The only other item for this commission is just to point out that the applicant is requesting a waiver of section 111-301.C.3 of the subdivision regulations pertaining to the decrease of the street pavement from 32 feet to 28 feet. That has not changed, correct? It's the width of the street is still being requested to be at 28.
Yeah, that was in talking to
Understood. So as part of your consideration of this application is also your consideration of that waiver. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, then we'll go to public participation. So for public participation, please, if you can address us at the commission, not the applicants or the applicant's experts, please try to limit yourself to 3 minutes. So please try not to be repetitive. If somebody just said X, Y, and Z, we don't have to hear X, Y, and Z again. You're really talking to us, the commissioners. We want to hear what you have to say, and we will take it into consideration. So raise your hand if you'd like to come up. Please go ahead first, and then name and address for the record. Thank you very much.
And you can say you agree with somebody else instead of repeating what they said.
Okay.
Put that out.
That's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
Michelle Soltysik, 237 Grant Street. Tried to sound as much as I could up front. I know you guys got bombarded by everybody, so I'm going to try and make this as succinct as I can. My concerns all relate to recharging water, of course. I bought for the third time since I bought my home in July of 2019. Went dry for half a day, September, I think 17 it was, but it might not. It sucks. When mine's not on a map. So I'm confused or concerned about a few things. I know, and I'm sure my terms are wrong. I apologize. I can't talk to her, but I apologize to the hydrogeological information person. There was a comment in a slide about 7-inch of recharge after 44 inches of rain. That's less than 20%. Okay, fine. According to State of Connecticut Aquarian and Forestry Division, approximately 50% of the annual precipitation gets returned to the atmosphere through evaporation. Evaporation happens more in sun and without shade cover. So there is a concern for me that this total acreage will have less that returns no matter what somebody tries to do in good faith with catch basins, whatever, because we now have this open 15 or whatever areas of property and water is getting cold wherever it goes. We have a lot more evaporation going on than we used to. There's 2 different instances, and I left you pages, I sent it so late, it went out today. I had Kathleen leave you guys a couple key parts. So the assumption is that 85%, according to page 26 of 58 pages, it's within that hydrogeological study. Because each resident will be served by an individual septic system, approximately 85% of the groundwater withdrawn would be returned to the groundwater system. through percolation from the septic leach fields. Don't have to be a hydrogeologist. If your usage is 100% of whatever you use, and standard says in suburban areas, roughly 50%, and as much as 70, and it's in their report as well, roughly 50% of water is used outside the household, watering your lawn, kid pulls car, garden, whatever. 50% is outside the house, not getting returned to your normal septic, barring whatever they're trying to do to split it to go that way. But overall, if 50% of that's lost, we lose 25% of usage right off the bat to evaporation, other than in winter. And we still have evaporation in winter, it's dry as heck. That 85% I think is not correct. I'm really concerned that more than half the well data is missing to no fault of the applicant. But if you look at the statistics on the wells, that paper, or not paper, I'm sorry, there was a slide that was up there when she spoke that said 19% of the wells, or 19 of the wells, were less than 5. It's actually 20. It's on page 194. On that pages, it shows on there, okay, here it is. It's 20, not 19, that are less than 5 gallons per minute, and it's on that yield 194 page. 14 are over 5, not 17, because 3 of them are at 5 gallons. The statistics in the report I am not comfortable with. There's too many things that don't make sense no matter what your occupation. And that makes me concerned for the rest of it, because for people like you who have literally probably over 1,000 pages submitted to you, that you are supposed to be able to read as a commissioner to make a decision on this that impacts me and mine. That's hard. There's no way you have time to go through all that. So when you're reading blurbs that says 85% is going back, if you're basing it on this is a professional who is paid and whatever, you're going with this is accurate. I'm looking at this going, even the numbers they've given and the figures they've given and the data they've given with evaporation and use outside of the home that is not your normal consumption. Those numbers aren't right. They don't make sense. I question the report. I ran and sent to Kathleen in an email earlier in the week, right after the August flood last year. Data for the next 12 months, September to August of this year, because September this year is not available yet. National Weather Center. I sent her every friggin' month for that 12-month span. Out of 12 months, we had 4 months that we were over normal rainfall. One was over by 0.84 inches, 0.3, 0.07, and the best one was May. We were 2.72 inches over our norm. Overall, that 12-month span, we were down 12.06 inches shortfall of normal rain. This wasn't even like one of our really bad years, supposedly. Our reservoirs are dry, our vernal pools are gone, some of our ponds are gone. I'm very concerned. Additionally, they said, which I'm aware of, your septic has to be at least 75 feet, I think it was, away from your well. Those wells, he stated, because they're going into bedrock, they get sealed. They're not drawing from the surface. They're not going to affect Kelly, who's got a hand dug well. Her hand dug well has to go with surface water. She's not in bedrock. That makes sense. If the well is, if this whole pipe is sealed and you're only pulling from that, that means the recharge they're telling us is coming from the septic at 85% is getting recharged to the water system. Whose water system? Because you've already said soilless till. Everything that we've read says till is not good. Okay, fine. The next set of stuff. That wasn't good either. It's why we have to go to bedrock. Well, the average bedrock is down over 40 feet. That's just to hit the bedrock, not the average well depth, to get a good amount of water. How in God's green earth is this water from the septic going to go all the way down through and then get through the bedrock potentially to these, 100 some odd foot projection of where the bedrock and the fissures are with water? We don't know. But I think the 85% is a very aggressive not very realistic number just by the other data that's been presented. I don't understand how that's gonna get back in the system. I really don't. I've also got concerns that our average well depth, we have some wells, one of them on Crown View is 605 feet deep. It pulls 6 gallons a minute. That's awful. Roosevelt has 2 wells at 505 feet. One pulls 3.5 gallons, one pulls 8. We have several properties that are accounted for. Please, I didn't interrupt you. We have several that are below a gallon, and it's not because they have low wells. Our shortest well on record is 109 feet, and it pulls 5 per minute. But we have some that are 0.75. Downs Road has a 450-foot well at 76 gallons. 450 feet, it pulls 0.75 gallons a minute. So I'm concerned with these recharge figures. I request respectfully that perhaps the town contract somebody themselves to run an independent test. I'm not comfortable with these numbers. I'm really not. And the fact that this came back again, I understand the legalities. I understand Attorney Russo stating, you know, they've got a right to build. I understand we're being sued. I get all this. But I can't afford just, I understand Mr. Tully saying, listen, if it's bad, you know, a lot of people go in and they redo the well. I can't afford to redo my well. My taxes just went up $1,000 because according to the assessor's office, it's a small 2-bedroom house and it's what everybody wants because that's the cheapest one to buy into in town. So this is what they go for, not the 4- and 5-bedroom houses. My taxes went up from $4,900 to $59,000. It's insane. I have a retaining wall and a driveway to replace after the flood last year because I had seepage for almost a month and it busted my driveway apart and taking out a retaining wall. It is what it is. I'm also losing a tree on that slope. I can't afford to do my well. I really can't. I would like to feel more comfortable if you all are forced to a decision that says, yes, we know legally we have to do this, putting in 8 4- to 5-bedroom homes with brand new lawns, brand new landscape. There's no way in Hades. Newtown and Bethel right now are on water restrictions where they have to do a certain amount because they had a culvert collapse and it compromised their water system. I can't do it. So I know it sucks. I know a lot of you probably have real jobs. This is volunteer. I respect every one of you for taking the time. It must suck getting all these papers for us. I did leave you some statistics. I gave Kathleen websites to back stuff up. I just need to know somebody's got my back. You guys all want everybody to have yours when you're elected and whatnot. I need to know people have ours too, because we're all here trying to get our point across to, we feel like legally they have more footing than we do. And that sucks. I pay taxes here. I'd be more sure than that. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in the audience like to make comments, please raise your hand. Gentlemen, come right up. Please state your name and address for the record.
Mark Lamont, I live at 51 Downs Road. And I've been there for 27 years. My wife Peggy's been there with me for 21 of them. We enjoy every minute of our lives in this community and in that neighborhood because of its unique character. It's residential, it's rural, wild, and it's natural. And even though we don't own the property in question, it's responsible for the environment in which we live, this natural wooded environment. And so it's an important piece of property to us. Mr. Riley, in a recent article in the Patch, you were asked why you were seeking this office again, and you replied, to continue bringing smart and high-end development to Monroe while maintaining Monroe's rural, suburban atmosphere. I love that. I believe that. I was a forestry major at the University of Vermont. I'm an outdoors person. It's one of the reasons that I bought the house on 51 Downs Road 27 years ago. With all due respect to the commissioners, how does the development of this beautiful 30+ acre parcel, natural area, wetlands, forest, underground aquifer, incredible habitat for a wide variety of wildlife, Some of them now we found endangered. And the guardian of our neighborhood, how does that maintain that rural character of our community by developing?
Well, it's going to be developed. It's private property, and the owner has declared that it's going to be developed. To me, it makes more sense to do a cluster development where you have more of that property left wild than to spread the houses over the whole property. And then, pretty much it's gone. They're proposing to leave a large portion of the property undeveloped. Somebody else could come in and say, you know what, I'm going to develop the whole damn thing. That's what I mean by which is smarter. Is it better to save most or much of the property or develop all the property? Because it's going to be developed. We can't stop private owners from developing their land. This is America. It's the last thing we're going to do is tell you you can't develop your land. Too bad. So it's going to be developed. Which way do you want it to be developed?
This was preserving 54% over half the property.
The property, all that open space, 57.8%. Yes, it's wetlands, and then it's the cliffs and the rocks and the caves above the wetlands that feed the wetlands. That's where the water comes from that feeds the wetlands and makes them wet. It's not developable. So that's where the cluster comes from, I suppose. But then I don't understand something. If what you just said is true, what's the purpose of the hearings?
Make sure that they stay within the rules. And that to make sure that the developer stays within the rules, it makes it a safe development, protects the properties around it from runoff and from light pollution, from everything else, and to make it as least intrusive as possible. That's why they're doing the hearing. And we'll tell them you can't do this, you can't do that, or you have to do this a certain way. That's why we had the hearings. Not to say yes or no, you can't develop it, but.
So the presence of an endangered hawk species on the property, DEP, proof of identity and confirmation of identity, that's.
Yeah, we would then ask them to make certain changes in their development practices to account, to preserve the species, yeah. That's part of what the hearings, the wetland hearing is for also.
Okay, well, I'll talk quickly then about the wells. We have a well, we've never run out of water. That's a good thing. We're up on the top of Downs Road. 51 is almost at the apex of the hill. Our well's 200 feet deep. I know that because the dead of winter about 6 years ago, we had to have it replaced. The pump went and fed all the line out into the backyard. So it's 200, might be 220. I don't really remember. I didn't write it down at the time. So that means where the wellhead is in our backyard is about 410 feet above sea level. So subtracting and doing the math and whatnot, our well is pulling water from bedrock, an aquifer that's well below the average grade or the average elevation of this proposed development. And I heard what was said here. I don't think anybody can confirm beyond shadow of a doubt they don't want that these new 8 wells in the subdivision won't tap our water supply. So I'll just ask, is there any way we get another independent hydrogeologist in there? There are other ways besides the existing reports to find out where is the water. You can have underground mapping done of this watershed and the aquifer. So can we have that done? Because what happens if this thing gets built and suddenly everybody turns on the taps and we don't have water? With that, I'll thank you for listening.
Thank you for your observations. And, okay. Next, come on up. Name and address for the record, please.
My name is Paula Jelly. I live at 290 Cottage Street. 1564 Monroe Turnpike surrounds me on three sides. My property is 1.04 acres surrounded by 1564 Monroe Turnpike, 14 acres. You would think that I would not have well water issues. It's over 200 feet deep. I bought my house 24 and a half years ago. I learned the hard way not to water the lawn. Otherwise, the well goes dry. I don't wash my car. I don't run more than one water appliance at a time. And it actually takes more water to wash dishes by hand than today's modern dishwashers. I have front-loading clothes washers that use a fraction of the water of a top loader. The loss of trees to build these homes will increase stormwater runoff into the storm drains and therefore not recharge the groundwater. The hill behind me is quite steep, and the swale shown there show just protection from houses 4 and 5. Where is the protection from house number 3? Because house number 3 comes at me from this direction. And I have let my property go wild, both in trees and underbrush, to absorb all that water. But I still have a problem with that last storm last year. It just overwhelmed it. So how is house number 3 protecting me? I didn't see a swale on house number 3 plot map. Also, I want to comment about Attorney Russo claimed that the houses could be on 1 acre. He misspoke. The zoning is RF2, which means they need 2 acre lots. So he actually just misspoke and actually not saying they're larger than what they need. They are smaller. So I don't think I can explain it more than that. But Attorney Chris Russo misspoke that they're only necessary to be 1 acre lots, but they need 2 acre lots. At the last submission, at the last application, one of my neighbors made a Freedom of Information Act to the Department of Transportation about what on those 2 pieces of property, if they've met with the Department of Transportation. They only provided information about that they've been talking about addresses 1271. I have submitted another Freedom of Information request from the Department of Transportation. That request is in progress. Hopefully I will have it last time, because the developer claimed, to be more specific, the engineer claimed that he had met with the Department of Transportation. So I want proof that they really have met with the Department of Transportation about the road placement. And also, Attorney Chris Russo had said in a subcommittee meeting of planning and zoning that he was going to conduct a site line analysis. Where is that site line analysis? We need this to be a safe neighborhood. This is the hydrologist's map. And these are just the few maps that she found. And if I recall properly, she said she did what she called a windshield survey. And I took that to mean she drove around the neighborhoods. If she had driven around the Jones Road neighborhood, she would realize there's a lot more houses back there. These little black dots, these are the addresses. These are the addresses. These are the These are all the addresses of the homes back there. There are over 60 homes, 68 I checked. Please save my home from extra water runoff. Please, please, please. I have one other question about building. How long are the homes going to take to be built? And from what hours in the morning to what hours in the evening are they allowed the noisy construction? Is it just weekdays? Is it 9 to 5? Or do we get a reprieve from the construction noise on the weekend? Thank you very much for your kind consideration.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else here tonight that would like to comment on this application? Do we have anybody online that would like to comment on this application? Please press your raise.
There's one raised hand.
You got somebody in the crowd.
I will go ahead with you.
Let's finish in person.
Finish everyone here first. Just your name and address for the record, please.
All right, Brian Theoret, 5 Sunrise Terrace. I'm here to speak against the proposed Sun Valley Glen development at 1536, 1564. It just seems to me that this proposal is grossly inadequate and represents a significant risk to the health, safety, and welfare of our established neighborhood. The people that live here and the wildlife that lives here as well. Our primary and most urgent concern is the threat to the water supply. It just seems like the number of test cases that they've used is very low compared to the number of actual wells in the area, whether that's because they're not on record or what. It just seems like it's incredibly inadequate, I'm sorry. And basically seems like a failure to properly assess the impact on the existing community. It just seems like a lot of the numbers that were used in the examples were just sort of general numbers from, I think West Hartford was mentioned. I might have the town, but there were numbers that were taken not from our area. It seemed like just to kind of get general ideas for flow and demand, demand and supply. I'm sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. Beyond the water of the wells, it seems this proposal involves extensive wetland disturbance around the area of where the entrance will be. And that's, a big concern. It seems like the dealing with the stormwater and the groundwater flow, it's such a steep incline there. It doesn't seem like a 1 foot deep swale will do anything to protect Paula's property. Furthermore, it seems like the traffic safety, that seems like a very dangerous location for an entrance where cars fly down that road. And it just doesn't seem like enough has been done to make sure that would be safe. I was going to talk about the sidewalks, but it seems like the sidewalks are out of the question. It was mentioned in the previous that sidewalks should be required as they were required in other developments, but I prefer that they were, held to the same standards as previous developments. I I don't know where that leaves it, but I just wanted to bring that up. I mean, for all of these reasons that I've mentioned and others have mentioned, and the myriad of letters that have been submitted by everybody, I just hope, urge the commission to once again deny this application until the developer can provide comprehensive, independent, and scientifically rigorous studies that would be required to prove that this project will not harm the existing residents, our water supply, and our environment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, right here. Come on up, name and address for the records, please.
Samantha Theoret, also at 5 Sunrise Terrace. I'm just going to speak to a general nature comments. We went to wetlands twice with this application. I know it's a new application, but it's called a resubmission. So as you can imagine, it's a little bit confusing. If it's a new application, why is it a resubmission also? But there we go. Then we came here and it was denied. I was really happy. No offense to this party. Now we're back and we're being sued. And I don't think the neighbors think that we'll never have the property developed. That's, I mean, yeah, in a perfect world that, the land stays the land. But, we talk, like, all the nature programs I watch, it's like, well, due to man doing this, due to man doing that, due to man doing this. And it's like, as if we just talk about these things like, oh, well, we didn't have anything to do with it. So the point is that Mr. Russo wants to say, like, yes, X amount of land we're giving in open space. Let's be honest, that land is not developable. And also, it's all wetlands. It's caves, it's wetlands. It was, Dr. Clemens spoke to the importance of the area. That's why they're not building more than 8 homes. It's not, we're giving this to the town out of our, out of being kind to the town. Let's be real. So with that being said, why do we have to build 8 homes? Could we not have 4 homes? Could we not have 2 homes? I believe it was even granted permission for 2 homes. Why do we have to do 8? These are 4 and 5 bedroom properties. This is not consistent with the neighborhood. We're saying it is, and it's not. The homes on the back side are 2, maybe 3 bedroom homes. We've already talked about how old the houses are, how old the wells are. I mean, the houses are so old, our well information is not even accessible. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. If we're talking more about Manor and Crown View, sure, those homes are very similar. But if we're talking about Paula's house at 290 or any of the homes on Downs Road, Sunrise, Patchogue, Schultz, Cottage, it's not in line with the community whatsoever. Let's just be real about that. And I just want to say, we harped on the well issue because yes, we're concerned about the wells. However, we've been at this for years. Honestly, we've given our time. It's not like we're getting paid for our research, paid for our time, away from our families, away from, doing work. It's because we care. We really care about the neighborhood, and I think that's what we're trying to get through. We understand about the cluster subdivision versus a regular subdivision, and we understand, it's not like we're talking about 8 homes versus a 10-story building. I mean, that's just obviously not going to be the case. I think we're just asking for just some understanding that it is a special part of town. And yeah, we don't own that. We don't own the land, but we are looking out for the land and for the town of Monroe. My husband and I moved here for a reason. We love the rural feel. We understand that, as Americans, we have the right to develop our own land, but I think overall, we just want it to be done the right way. And that's why we've been going at it for so long. We're passionate. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot one very important thing.
Let's go to the people online, give them a chance. There's somebody online that has a comment, I believe.
Yes, I have, it's Kelly. I have pressed allowed to talk, so she has to accept it on her end.
Hey, Kelly, accept it on your end.
I did.
All right, we can hear you.
Excellent. Hi, I'm Kelly Hangus Carano at 19 Shoals Road, and I'm the one with the 12-foot hand dug well. I do have a mortgage on my home, so I'm kind of offended at some of the comments made by the presenters tonight. I do have a mortgage on it. Did not have to put in a new well. The well is original to my home. The water is tested constantly and is delicious. Actually, my son lives in North Carolina now, and every time he comes home, he's so excited to drink our water. I'm an organic master gardener. I don't need to be spoken down to in any presentations. I have 2 bachelor's degree and I'm a current student at Harvard in cybersecurity. And I was offended by the engineer and the way that he spoke. I'm offended by the whole project. Here's a novel approach for Monroe. How about no waiver or variance? For the subdivision/cluster homes, and public water has to be utilized in order to have public homes, cluster homes here. That are the rules in Monroe. And this has been going on since the year 2000, when one of the parcels went to be developed with 4 homes and a road and ended up only being approved for 2 homes and a shared driveway. And the developer at that time decided against doing that because it wasn't profitable. So let's bring down the public water and do it by the rules. I've lived here for over 20 years. I actually ran out of water this week trying to do 1 load of wash with my well. And I've lived here for 20 years with 3 people in the house, living symbiotically with the land. I understand I have a well that's only 12 feet deep. But that's the reality of all of us up here. And I think it's short-sighted of the town to allow any variance on the planning and zoning application, because simply this area cannot sustain 32 bedrooms with water usage. We have a fire pond going in. We're going to be are we not fracking wells now? Or are we just pounding? We're not going to be introducing water that is not from this area. Last time we were talking about fracking wells and now we're just pounding them. So I'm a little concerned with that. But, we have the sharp-shinned hawk here, which is endangered. The Sierra Club and Deep have been contacted about this property because we feel like we've been spinning our wheels the past couple of years. So I want to thank you guys for allowing us to speak. And I understand that the land can be developed and will be developed, but let's be real. 8 houses there cannot be sustained. And that's why the cluster home statutes right now say that they have to have public water. So that's all I have to say. Of course, all of my letters are in. Thank you for reading them. And just thank you for your time and consideration. And I do agree with everyone who spoke tonight, by the way. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Is there anyone else online that would like to comment on this application? See anybody? Charlie, 1 point. Go ahead.
Paula Tilly, 290 Cottage Street. I almost forgot the most important thing. On August 11th, I saw, again, for the 100th time, a sharp-shinned hawk. I've been seeing them for years. I finally got to photograph it. I sent my photographs and videos to Deep. They have verified, yes, indeed, it is a juvenile sharp-shinned hawk. It is on the Deep's website as an endangered hawk. It's a small hawk, 10 to 14 inches, male 10 inches. I've been studying these hawks for years, since 2012. The females get up to 14 inches. It's a very small hawk, but they can still live where there are larger hawks. I have red-shouldered hawks. Haven't had red tails in a couple of years because the red shoulders have kind of pushed them out. But please preserve these woods for this sharp-shinned hawk. And DEEP has acknowledged that it is going to add it to their database. Thank you very much. Please protect this bird.
Thank you, Mrs. Jelly. Do we have anyone else here that would like to comment on this application? Anyone else online? Okay, then we'll go back to the commissioners. Commissioners, are any other questions tonight? Kathleen, do you have any other comments tonight on this application?
I can answer a couple of these questions as it relates to our regulation.
Okay.
If you want me to do so. Sightline analysis, I'm going to follow up. I have a note to myself to follow up with our town engineer as it relates to the sightline of the driveway at the front. Off the top of my head, I don't know if they provided something or what his current review is of that. Hours of operation for construction, the town of Monroe regulations allow, I'm going to call it general construction from 7 to 5 Monday through Saturday. You cannot work on holidays. We always say it's our holidays. It's town of Monroe holidays. So that includes days like Columbus Day and June 19th and things of that nature. That's for general construction. Anything that could be considered, I guess, noisy, which I'm going to put as an excavation and filling. So that's excavation, grading, moving of earth material, pushing of earth material, is 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. So that's where our base is. And then blasting is reduced even further to 9 to 5 Monday through Friday if it has been approved as part of the application. This commission has restricted some of those hours in the past due to neighbors, and that's something that you guys can take into consideration if you would like to do so. One comment about Attorney Russo's comments about being able to reduce the lots down to 1 acre. What he's talking about is a conventional subdivision, which is a subdivision that comes in front of the commission that meets the underlining zoning district, which in this location is an RF2, has to have a minimum of 2 acres. They're applying for a cluster subdivision, which is per our local town of Monroe regulations, allows the reduction of the lots from 2 acres to 1 acre. And that's what he was speaking about for the 1 acre. So they're not applying for a full reduction down to 1 acre. They're applying for a reduction down to 1.5. I think it's 1.4 in some, 1.5 in another. So he did not misspeak. What he was clarifying is that they're actually not asking for the full reduction for the lot size. They're actually asking for 50% of that going down to that area. This commission, by state statutes, is permitted to grant a clustered development. So the state statutes allows this commission to grant a cluster development. And basically it just states if you give 1/3 of the property to open space, you can reduce the lots in order to allow the same amount of lots that could be conventionally subdivided to be reduced into that area. It gives no other requirements, public water, how far you can reduce it down to, things of that nature. When staff had heard that there were several cluster subdivisions that might be coming in front of the town and that past staff had recommended the cluster subdivision, we came to the commission and we said, we're a very unique town in the sense of we have no sewer system, which means we're always dealing with this kit of parts. So when you develop a property, you have your house, your impervious surface with your driveway, your stormwater management practices, your septic system, and then sometimes a well at the same time. So we had recommended to the Planning and Zoning Commission that we'd be willing to write cluster subdivision regulations to make sure that we were thinking about the coverage for the property, to make sure the houses couldn't be too big, but at least would be big enough to fit into the characteristic of the neighborhoods. We don't allow cluster subdivisions on 1 acre lots because we don't want them to be less than 1 acre due to, again, trying to fit all those puzzle pieces together. And we worked with our health department, our town engineer, all of our different disciplines to come up with regulations to restrict it. In addition to that, we added a special exception permit to that, which allowed this commission more discretion to put additional conditions on the approvals, as well as potentially deny it if they felt like it did not meet the requirements of the special exception permit. So without the cluster subdivisions was actually not created to enable this. It was actually created to restrict it and to give the commission more power to restrict some of those things in that area. Because without it, then they can come in for, it per the state statutes. And there's no necessarily any restrictions on it. And we wanted to make sure that we were providing guidance and allowing this commission the opportunity to put some additional restrictions legally onto a project if you so thought it was necessary.
Okay, thank you. So back to the applicant. I believe we're going to leave this hearing open.
You received a lot of information. I highly recommend that we leave this open to the next meeting so that you have the opportunity to get all the letters. We got just even in the last 48 hours, we got hundreds of pages of information. You have not gotten physical copies of any of those since Friday. So there's a lot of stuff tonight because it's the first time that you're seeing. So we do recommend that we leave this open until October 16th in order to give this commission the opportunity to really thoroughly look through it.
Okay.
Do you want us to respond tonight then? And then
It's your discretion.
Do you want to go first? Just
Unfortunately, I didn't get all of the names, but first woman, Michelle, who spoke, was talking about recharge and the fact that septics, 85% seemed to be a high number. That came from studies. I didn't make that up. Actually, studies said that it was actually a higher percentage that recharges from the septic system. And just to be clear, the water from the septic system that does infiltrate into the ground, not all that water goes into the bedrock. It goes into the soils, and some of it makes its way down into bedrock, and it doesn't happen instantaneously. It is over a period of time, depending on what kind of soils you have. So I focused on, like I said, the demand and what the recharge was to the property. And so we have a surplus of recharge to the demand, and then we also had more surplus to the septic recharge. So I don't know what else to say except that there's enough studies out there that says that this type of material, this type of geology, annually you'll get 7 inches of the precipitation that makes it into the groundwater. And you can do a calculation, and that translates to about 520 gallons per day. Per acre, sorry. So that's where I came up with the 16,000 gallons and change per day. And then I guess there was another question. I'm going to say Paula, I'm sorry, Shelley maybe, had said about the windshield tour. Yes, the purpose of that map is we generated that map. So we took all the properties in the vicinity of the proposed development, and we tried to find any kind of wells that we could, and then just put it on a map so that we could see where it was located. And I did do a windshield tour, which is exactly that. I drove around just to get a feel for the site so that I could understand not just a map, what the neighborhood was like and what the topography was like. And so that map is what we, just shows the well records that we could find. And the purpose was not to focus on their wells so much as just to understand what that geology could possibly yield in terms of, between a half a gallon to 30 gallons and depths ranging from 100 feet deep to 600 feet. I guess Brian Barrett might have, I'm sorry for all of my mistakes, but was questioning about where the numbers came from. So the demand that we came up with per house is Connecticut Public Health Code, which is 150 gallons per day per bedroom for 3 bedrooms, and then another 125, I think, for any additional bedroom. What we also referenced to a long time ago, it was actually 75 gallons a minute per person per day. But then it became very confusing as to how many people live in the bedroom. So it became a bedroom count, and that's what I went by, which is the code. So that's how I came up with the number for the code. I looked at the records for precipitation over, like I said, a large period of time so that I could get an average, not just this year, but over an extended period of time. So again, that'll kind of normalize the dry years and the wet years. So that's where the precipitation numbers came from. And then the recharge, like I mentioned previously, that came from publications. That's where I got the 7 inches of water that actually makes it into bedrock. I think that is it for me.
Yeah, did you respond to, I think you touched on it a little bit, but the two numbers regarding the surplus, you had one that was 12,000, 15,000, because I think it goes to the question of the septic recharge and what those two numbers were.
Right, so can you make that come back?
Let me that number come back. Let me see. Oh, sorry, Kevin.
It just says it's just local user. It's the bottom tag there.
Okay. Let me get that to yours. Yeah, these two numbers, right?
Right. So, what this shows is, so the demand for the product through the 8 homes is 4,200 gallons per day, which is less than 3 gallons a minute. And the recharge, the 7 inches per year, is 16,430 gallons per day. So you just subtract it, and it shows that there is a surplus of water to this site. It doesn't account for any other water that might be coming from the watershed to the site. It's just this property. And then the consumptive demand is just saying, okay, in reality, you're going to get more recharge, and it's going to come through the septic. And it's just going to be the use of the septic and it infiltrating into the ground. But I'm still accounting for the 7 inches of rainwater. That's 16,000. I'm just subtracting what the septic number is, and that's 630 gallons of consumptive use. That 630 gallons a day is lost. That's just lost. But you still have a surplus of over 15,000 gallons per day.
Right, and just to be clear there, even if you took out, because I was a neighbor who was talking about how much does the septic actually bring back, even if you take that out, we still have a surplus of over 12,000 gallons per day. Okay.
Does that account for the water coming within the bedrock, or is that just groundwater?
So that is the water that's going into the bedrock.
Okay.
That's the groundwater that's in the bedrock.
So including like if you guys drill a well down into a vein or something like that, or a crack, that's all of this is all encompassing of that.
That's what recharges the site, and it translates into a gallon per day.
All right, thank you.
Okay, just a few things. Actually, Kathleen answered a couple of them regarding what that 1 acre comment was, and it is because the cluster development regulation only require 1 acre for this, for cluster development. The other thing I'd like to point out, because this is Monroe Turnpike, it would require a DOT encroachment permit. They would review and issue the permit based on sightlines and everything, and that's where the conversation where Jason reached out to them to analyze where they would locate that. And because eventually this is going to have to go to DOT, and they're going to have to approve this road. So it's a little different than others. There's other subdivisions that have wells, Whitetail Drive, which my client developed, that also has wells. So it's not something where every subdivision has to have a connection to public water supply. And then Chair, I think you actually kind of touched on that in your exchange with Mr. Lamont, is that this is smart development. Previous subdivision regulations, with apologies to zoning forefathers, were very kind of cavemanish. They were just, you're in a 2-acre zone. This is the standard for a 2-acre property with regards to frontage, and you just plot them down. And that's why I know there's old subdivisions that I've gone and visited, and sometimes you see lots that don't make sense. I can think of one house in particular where I see a driveway because of the grades are bad. You see a driveway that goes like this and zigzags up to get to a level where they have a house. And you're like, how did that house get built? And some of these old subdivisions that just had these regs that were very rudimentary. This is a smart regulation because listening to the comments, Ms. Solciak's talking about preserving open area. Ms. Jelly's talking about habitat that's there. Mr. Lamont's talking about trying to protect this natural wooded environment. Old subdivision regulations, conventional subdivision regulations don't do that. They're just very by the book. And the case law and how the courts review it is also rudimentary. It basically is, if you comply with the standards, there's almost nothing the commission could do. You would turn to Kathleen, say, does this conform with our regulations? She'd say yes, and then there'd be little that you could do. With a cluster subdevelopment, you're able to integrate in the special exception permit standards and the requirements for that. And that, to me, makes it a smart and sophisticated regulation in allowing to protect the things that these neighbors are talking about. And that's what I think, this application does. I think it's preserving a significant amount of open space in perpetuity. I mean, there's going to be a restriction on this property forever. And so it's something that this commission basically can, take satisfaction in knowing by approving this, they're protecting that area forever. Not just wetlands, also sensitive habitat area that Dr. Clemens had identified. So I think it's a regulation that acknowledges the reality that private property owners have the right to develop their property, but also trying to use smart regulation to minimize impacts as much as possible. It doesn't allow you to increase the density that you would otherwise be permitted. That's not what it does. So I'll hold my comments because it sounds like the rest of my comments before I go through the special exception permit standards and all that. But any other questions? Again, we have everybody here. We'd be happy to answer.
Okay, then we will leave this hearing open. Does anyone have any questions tonight up here? So we'll leave it open until our next meeting in October,
October 16th.
October 16th, there'll be another chance for the public to participate at that meeting.
And I would just like to state that we have been severely understaffed due to sickness this week, and our office manager, Christy Riley, has taken the brunt of all of the comments and exhibits that have come in and has done a tremendous amount of work to make sure that they were online for public access and copies for all of you tonight so that you had everything to review. So a gigantic thank you to her and to the building department who actually lent us some people today because we didn't think we were gonna make it. So just a big thank you to staff for everything that they've done to keep all of this organized over the last couple of days.
Okay, thank you. So we have the subdivision next. So we'll hold you off till October, when? What's that? 16th?
16th.
16th, October 16th.
All right, so we do have a subdivision that we have to make a statement of satisfactory completion. The town council can accept this road, 64 Cambridge Drive.
So this information was in your last packet, including a recommendation letter from James DeMayo, our town engineer. So this was for the subdivision for the cul-de-sac at 64 Cambridge, which was application number 2015-02. So this was about 10 years ago that this had gotten approved. They have submitted their improvement location survey dated 11/20/2024 and their quitclaim deed transferring ownership by by Astro Lane Holdings to the town of Monroe. Our next step is to have town council accept the road. In order to do that, they need a positive referral by the Planning and Zoning Commission that the subdivision was constructed in accordance with the approval. And that is the request to this commission tonight.
All right, any commissioners have any questions about this? No. Nope. All right, then I think we need a motion.
Motion to approve SUB 2015-02 file 1257C 64 Cambridge Drive.
It's really motion to provide a positive referral to a.
Motion to provide a positive referral from the Planning and Zoning Commission of Monroe, Connecticut, SUB 2025-02, file 1257C 64 Cambridge Drive, to the Town Council of Monroe.
Thank you.
Second, Condon.
And we have a second by Con. All right, we'll call the roll, starting on my right.
I'm so sorry.
We will.
To seat, did we seat some?
Dominic.
You had stepped outside, but I, for the records, did Dominic, yeah. It was when I think you were going.
Okay,
So sorry.
Grab something, no worries.
call the roll.
Mergelino, yes.
Condon, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Rainey, yes.
Westland, yes.
Okay, then we will submit a positive referral. All right, so then deliberation determinations, we can do these pretty quick deliberations here. First is the 169 Enterprise Drive. That was the two buildings that they want to move up, I think, from Bridgeport. We've heard them over the last few months. There are a couple of conditions of approval that Kathleen can go over. How are we feeling on this one?
Let's go with it.
Go with it.
I'll make a motion to approve
Can I read through the conditions?
Sure.
A lot of conditions. The applicant is permitted to occupy the space with manufacturing and contractors trade establishments. Actually, I'm going to add office to that, with office, manufacturing and contractors trade establishment uses. Other industrial uses that require a special exception permit will require the owner or applicant to apply for a special exception permit modification or a special exception permit as appropriate. 2, EV charging station infrastructure will be provided as per Connecticut General Statutes 4B77C. Additional construction information shall be provided during the certificate of zoning compliance application process. They have a note saying that they're going to comply with it, but I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost. So I would like that to be a condition of the approval. The unit numbering shall be coordinated/approved with the Town of Monroe Assessor's Office. I don't know if they're going to have 2 separate addresses for that, but I just want to make sure that that gets coordinated so everybody's on the same page. 10 of the deferred parking spaces shall be striped in order to meet the 25% deferred parking requirement. They have verbally agreed to that, but they don't have updated plans. All truck traffic traveling to Route 25 must exit the industrial park to the right. Must exit industrial park to the right. Yeah. I'm just with the wording. Must exit the industrial park to the right at the exit. One sign shall be provided stating something to that effect. I don't know exactly. What it is.
Must turn on the.
Yeah, is there a better
Right on
term?
Pepper Street.
Must turn right onto Pepper Street.
Okay.
That's the way to put it.
All truck traffic traveling Route 25 must exit right onto Pepper Street. That's fine. One sign shall be provided stating something to that effect. The wall-mounted lights are noted at 24 feet. The applicant shall review height and confirm 25 feet is correct. If 24 feet is incorrect, the applicant shall provide an updated lighting plan that shows compliance with the Town of Monroe zoning regulations. And then prior to the certificate of zoning compliance, a covenant shall be executed guaranteeing that the owner will provide the additional spaces as regulated by the Town of Monroe zoning regulations for deferred parking, section 6-6.1.11. So 7 conditions.
Okay,
Holy.
I'll make a motion to approve SCP 2025-04, file 1668, 169 Enterprise Drive with the conditions approved.
okay. That's
Second.
Condon and second Mayini. Call the roll, starting on my right.
Oh, am I on this one? Because
You're on all of them.
You're here.
You're up today, brother.
Smergelino, yes.
Big day to shine.
Yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Mayne, yes.
Westland, yes.
Okay. Passes unanimously.
Shine bright like a diamond, Don.
Moving along, 17 Enterprise Drive. This is the SCP associated with the
Enterprise Drive,
SCP. Yeah,
first one,
second one.
second one first?
No, we have to do shared parking first.
Shared parking.
You guys, if you are willing to entertain approvals for both, you need to have the shared parking approved and then you can approve.
All right, we'll start with the shirts. Here,
All right, sure.
shared parking.
Motion to approve SCP 2019-10-A1 files 1618 17 Enterprise Drive.
Motion by Mike.
Second.
Second.
Boy,
Mercury.
Dominic.
Any
Let's
discussion?
go.
Oh, know what we're
No,
doing
it's good.
with this one?
Seems good. It's good.
Okay, no discussion, then we'll call the roll, starting with Dominic.
Marlino, yes.
Condon, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Mayne, yes.
Westland, yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, then we can continue with SCP 2025-07.
Sure, make a motion to approve.
Enterprise Drive.
Dom, you want to do it? Go ahead, man.
No, no, no.
Get on this one.
No, Michael.
Motion to approve SCP 2025-07 file 1671 17 Enterprise Drive.
Motion by Mayne and a second.
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 Wait, give me 1 second. It's 25.
We gotta get Westland in the game a little bit.
So what's the discussion on this? This is a 12 space. That was the first one.
Yeah, this
This is,
It's for the Ninja Gym.
Ninja.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a
Good to go.
booming business that is
the one about booming.
more popular. And
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be an awesome addition to the town. It's probably gonna bring in a lot of people.
Awesome.
So we have a motion and we have a second and we have a discussion. So we'll call the roll, starting on my right.
Marlino, yes.
Condon, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Mayne, yes.
Westland, yes.
Congratulations.
It's done. Porco staying open, right?
What?
No, did Porco have to stay open? He wasn't coming back with anything?
Yes.
I need the wetlands report.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Photos.
Yeah, well-
Stays open.
And the other one stayed open. Monroe Turnpike.
Okay, we have a new application, which is scheduled for October the 16th.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this was scheduled for tonight. The applicant didn't understand that they were occupying 1565 Monroe Turnpike, not 1585 Monroe Turnpike. They wrote the application for the wrong address, so we noticed it for 1585. So we had to renotice it for 1565. And unfortunately, when we caught it, it was too late that we couldn't just like change it for this round. So he did renotice to the neighbors as well as we renoticed to the newspaper.
Okay, meeting minutes. You'll have the meeting minutes from 9/18/25. Once you, as the chair will entertain a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of September 18th, 2025 as drafted.
Motion by Condon. And second?
Second.
Second, Westland.
Oh,
Any discussion?
No.
Okay, good. Call the roll. Starting on my right.
Marlino, yes.
Condon, yes.
Riley, yes.
Mayne, yes.
Westland, yes.
Meeting passes. Zoning planning matters. Political signs. There has been some controversy lately in the newspapers and such.
Yeah, I looked at the regulations and it says that signs are permitted to go up. I want to say, is it 45 days prior to the election?
Yeah, may be erected no sooner than 45 days prior to the election, must be removed within 7 days after the election, shall not be illuminated.
So I think no,
Yeah,
it doesn't say election day.
correct.
This is the election, and we're in a new world where the election starts October 20th.
Correct.
Don't forget to vote.
So the term of
That's the
election is not
rules.
defined within the regulations, nor is specified whether it's solely to the general election day. As we participate in early voting, the 45-day period is interpreted as from the beginning of the first day of early voting. So for the 2025 calendar year, early voting begins October 20th. Accordingly, political signs may be posted on or after September 5th. So just for the record, that was looked into by both candidates. And both of them are in compliance, with when they put the signs up.
All right.
I did want to state that.
An example of consequences of your actions. When you decide something, you should think it out all the way. And, you know, opening up an election opens up everything.
Correspondence none? Just commission report?
Yeah, just.
Do we have correspondence?
Well, just a commissioner, oh no, sorry, commissioners report.
Go ahead. Well,
I just want to request that in the main meeting minutes of today's meeting, we really pay attention to quote Commissioner Mayini's, "If I sound like a fool, it's because I know nothing." Make sure that's really in the minutes. That was a good quote.
Okay, do we have?
And I still stumped them. I still stumped them. It's crazy. I don't know how that happened.
Okay, Kathleen, do you have any report?
I don't have a hard copy, but I do have a couple other items. As you guys saw from some of tonight's applications, we get letters from the public at the 11th hour. We process them as exhibits, put them in our official record, digitize them, upload them onto the website, and then make copies for everybody, because our understanding is everybody here wants hard copies. There was one that was 224 pages that was submitted to
My
us.
question to you all is, do we need hard copies of all of these?
I mean, I review everything digitally, but.
That's the question.
So do I, and I'm an old guy.
There we go.
Do you want me to email them to you in addition to us uploading it digitally? Because sometimes we don't upload it digitally. I mean, if we have this much, she tries to kind of go, especially if we have an active application. But sometimes we do collect them and we do it like 2 days before ahead of time.
Not every commissioner reviews the emails or the online.
Well, you could.
I'm just saying.
I think an email or just a certification that this has been uploaded.
Yeah.
I agree with Rob.
Okay.
Email is helpful, like bringing my eye to attention, like something new has been uploaded or.
All right, that sounds.
But again, not to speak for all commissioners, I'm going to be nice. If somebody does want paper copies, would you still provide them for that one individual? Because I'm okay if
I mean,
someone gets them.
that's kind of the question. The problem, the one with the 224 pages, the problem ended up being that they refused to provide a digital copy. And they said that if we were not going to have stuff ready in 24 hours, that they were going to bring all 224 pages and read it here tonight. So.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
So, I mean, it was just, the paper was different textures. It kept clogging up the printer, like
How much of that paper talked about protecting the environment?
all of it was mostly all inland wetland letters.
Right.
So.
We look into how that works.
Exactly.
Ryan's on a roll.
Ryan,
No, it was one of those things.
Ryan went to the hairdresser and
So the hard
life
part
changed.
was even just getting it in a format that was copyable, you know, and then once we did that, it was easy to make all the copies. It was just like, most people will give us digital versions, and me digitizing somebody's email takes me 10 minutes. You know, that's not a big deal at all. It's just when they come in with these really huge, you know, submissions, the question is do we need to make copies for everybody?
I'm happy with digital. I mean, honestly, if there wasn't papers here, I'd probably be coming in with a laptop and just looking at everything digital, but.
Yeah.
But again, I would.
to save everyone, I'm gonna go buy a laptop now and we're just gonna do it all digital.
Okay, so it sounds like,
Rob, buy me a laptop.
whoever is not, I will follow up with the two commissioners who are not here, to see what they want to do. I have no problem doing it individually for people. We just didn't want to waste the paper moving forward if we didn't have to. So we just wanted to have a discussion on it. But yeah, we can potentially email, and maybe people can write back if they want it in hard copy, just because of specific stuff. But I will follow up with the two.
Or they could just print them out themselves.
Thank you, sir. Second.
Let's go paperless. It's good for the environment.
I mean, I'd love to go
Right,
paper.
it's good for,
All right.
it's good for the wetlands.
All right, that's number one. Number two, I don't think we can have this conversation without Commissioner Ambrosi, because he's the one that wanted to bring this up.
Still here or he?
Oh, God.
No, he left.
Has to leave.
Which is, he wanted to bring up the business signs. I think we sent them out to 60 some businesses. I will tell you, at least 20-some have reached out to us, gotten clarification.
Yeah, 17 called me.
And are fine, you know.
It's not open signs, right? I thought specifically the open signs were allowed, right?
Actually, we can't regulate speech. That's
that was
a constitutional issue. So we put a size to the sign and they can have one sign that says whatever they want to. It can't be flashing. It can't be
Crazy bright.
moving.
we
It
have to
can't
figure out
be, you know, any of those things. If they want to use it as an open, they can. If they want to use it as a hot dog, they can. Because we did have a hot dog, you know, sign in town there for a little bit. So it's really at their discretion what they have. We're not regulating freedom of speech, but the intention was to allow them to have the open signs. It was just discussed, it was just asked that we revisit that conversation here tonight, but, I can.
Can do that next meeting.
Push it to the next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think more of our concern was just like, we've already had almost half these people comply.
Yeah.
You know, so for us to now pause or to change it or to, it's just a tough,
It's good to monitor, and make sure we didn't do an overcorrection, but I don't think we did.
I don't think so either. I was driving around looking at other towns.
Yeah.
Towns that are, you know, and, I was pretty much taking note of the fact that once, you know, you kind of set a precedent with what you're doing, everybody falls in. So if you have 3 signs, the other guy has 4, he's gonna get the business, but if you all only have 1, it evens out.
yeah.
It doesn't look good when there's too many signs in the window.
I stand by the fact that,
You know, the show.
being a nice, friendly person gets you the business versus how many signs you have that say something about, you know, how much your liquor sales are.
People don't understand that though.
If you're nice, you're gonna get the business. If you're a jerk, you're not gonna get the business.
Okay.
Go.
Kathleen.
Last item is there was public participation at the last meeting that wanted to talk about the addresses and the land transfers in the assessor's office. I did have a chance to follow up with them. So the assessors, land transfer updates are always delayed about 30 to 45 days, just like naturally, that's the way that their system works. They are supposed to have Friday updates though, so that like 30 to 45 days then gets updated every, 7 days. That's a sequence. There was a hiccup in the system that they have not been updated since June. Something happened in Vision and Vision told the assessor that it was being updated, but it really wasn't being updated. That has since been rectified and is being updated. I went back to check 1536, 1564 Monroe Turnpike. I did catch one address that was incorrect that hadn't been updated for the land transfer. We were able to renotice them appropriately before the statutory timeline ran out. So we were able to make sure that that was all updated and they were all appropriately updated, even though there was a little bit of delay in that. So that was an issue. It has since been fixed. But naturally, there's always going to be a 30 to 45 day delay. It's really on the applicant to look at that information to make sure it's correct. We do give people the GIS system as a base, but the town clerk has a list of land transfers that they should also go in and just make sure that none of those addresses have changed in the last 45 days and are yet to be updated. All right, that's it.
Awesome job today, everyone. Especially Ryan.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. It is 10:20.